All right, good morning everybody from the tailplane of our JetBlue A320, and welcome aboard another Pilot's Live stream live with Captain Nabs here on Twitch. Good morning, Hayden UK, I see you there. Yeah, I don't have any music going when I do the preview. It's just a little preview to know that the stream's alive, but I've never really bothered to try and find any music to go with it, and I never know how long it's going to be either, so I don't want to have an endless stream of music going there. Some days I end up streaming very quickly, 1 or 2 minutes after I start it up. Sometimes I leave it for about 5 or 6 minutes because I'm actually finishing one or two more things, like getting my cup of coffee ready and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, good morning everybody, and welcome to this stream. So, as you could probably tell, we are picking up where we left off last time. I don't know if you can see the control tower just there, the distance off behind the airplane, but we are in Newark, and it is just a beautiful day in Newark. As you can tell, the sky is blue, the sun is shining, the birds are singing, and no, it's very depressing and very depressing and very kind of a dreary day in Newark, but that's okay. That's going to make for probably, hopefully, an interesting departure today for us as we get underway. So, what are we doing today? Today we are continuing, if you read the top of the stream there, we are continuing on from Newark. If I put this over on the correct screen, you'll see it, and you'll see me as well. Good morning, everybody. Here we are. We're going to be going from Newark down to Tampa, KTPA, Tampa International Airport, down in Florida. So back to Florida. JetBlue is doing a lot of New York, Florida stuff, or maybe that's my seniority. Maybe that's how I've been in this airline, but I seem to be doing a lot of kind of the sunshine destinations out of the New York area. Seems to be what we're doing. So it seems like this season's a little bit repetitive from last time, but that's the way the airline business is too. It's very repetitive. You're constantly, I think I did this flight last week or 2 weeks ago, and I'm doing it again, and you do it, you're back and forth all day. So I try to kind of keep this interesting by changing stuff up a little bit, but at the same time, it is, that's just the nature of the airline business. You're going to fly to the same airports over and over again. So I'm hoping that as our season proceeds, it'll get a little bit more interesting. So this is going to be a little repetitive perhaps for the next couple of streams, where we go Newark down to Tampa, and then from Tampa back up to JFK, JFK down to San Juan. After that, however, I think things kind of get a little bit more interesting. From San Juan, we go over to Orlando up to DCA, which I think is a fun airport to visit, back down to, I think Miami, is it? Or Fort Lauderdale? Fort Lauderdale, and over to New Orleans. So the first little part is basically up and down the East Coast time and time again, and that's pretty typical. That's very high-density airspace. There's reasons high-density airspace. There's a lot of travel demand in that particular direction. So lots of New Yorkers going back and forth to Florida, and so on and so forth. So that's not completely unexpected, and that's kind of the way an airline works. But we're going to try and hopefully get through these couple of legs, and it'll be a little bit more interesting when we get to DCA. That's always a fun airport. I can't wait to do that one. I don't think any of these legs are really short enough that I'm going to be able to do multiple legs in a session again like I did on that first stream. It just becomes too much. Even the 1,400-mile leg down to San Juan is going to become a bit unwieldy. So anyways, that's what we're up against today. Today we are one more leg, Newark to Tampa. And I want to apologize, not apologize, but just want to say that next week, unfortunately, there will be no stream. I only have literally 1 day off all of next week. It's a bit of a hectic day, hectic week next week. So I only have 1 day off. So unfortunately, there will be no streaming at all next week because I have that 1 day off. I'm going to kind of need to get some other stuff done, but hopefully the week after, I've got a couple days off. This month, I was actually adding it up, and I actually work quite a lot this month. I have some training, and the way our system is set up is that training doesn't count against your flying block when the blocks are being built. So if you have 2, 3, 4 days of training, that's coming out of your days off that you would otherwise get, not out of your days worked, which is kind of backwards from how you would think. You would think if it's company assigned training, you'd think that the company would be like, yeah, okay, you're going to get credit for that. We're not going to make you fly an amount equivalent to the number of days you're in training. But our company doesn't seem to see it that way. They say, no, we're going to build a complete block outside of that training. So I actually have a lot of work this month, and not that I mind going to work, but it's just like I've been looking at my schedule, and the more I look at it, I'm just like, oh my god, like I feel like I'm going to be at work all the time, all month long. So, anywho, yeah, but so what we're going to do is we're going to get this going today. We have a scheduled departure time of 20 after, so that's 34 minutes from now. Hopefully that should be enough time to get everything up and running. We're going to try and have an on-time departure today. Unfortunately, we're not going to have an on-time arrival pretty much no matter what we do unless we leave early. We are overblocked today. So if I pull up the flight plan here really quickly just to show you, and there's some interesting stuff on our flight plan here, but the estimated time en route today, if I can find it here, block time is estimated at 3:07, and our sched time is at 2:55. Actually, 2:57 I think is what I gave us on this, 2:57, 2:58, but our block time is 3:07. Our air time alone is nearly the full scheduled time. Our air time alone is, I can never find it here, 2:39. So we're going to have a very hard time getting to Tampa on time. We'll try, but it's going to be very hard just because we've got a very strong headwind. The average wind component today, if you look up here on the flight plan, minus 77 knots. 77 knots is the average headwind we're getting the whole flight. It's a very strong wind on the way headwind on the way down to New York, on the way down to Florida today. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. As you can see, if we just take a quick look at the flight plan before we actually even fire up the airplane, we've got some MELs today, and this is going to be an interesting one, and this is a collection that appears often. So not often. You don't want it to appear often, but if you do see this, chances are you're going to see all 4 of these. So today the trigger MEL was 22-60-02-alpha, which is a FAC2 fault. So FAC2 is not working. At some point it faulted. There's a problem with it. It's been deferred. However, and we'll read this in a second here, but when you do a FAC2 fault, it also brings in 3 additional systems that are failed. So the yaw damper system, one of the 2 parts of the yaw damper system, which is controlled by FAC2, has been MEL'd because half of the yaw damper system is not working. Rudder trim system 2, also controlled by FAC2, so that's also not working. And the rudder travel limiter, also not working properly because, again, controlled by FAC2. So a whole bunch of kind of derivative defects as a result of this. So we're going to have to go through the MEL carefully before we depart and make sure that we've got all that stuff taken care of. Otherwise, we've got quite a bit of fuel today. We've got 30 minutes of weather fuel, 10 minutes of ATC fuel, because we do have a bit of an unpleasant ride here. So if I just pull over my Simbrief page here that I filed, and you pull up first of all the weather radar, you'll see that there is a whole ton of precipitation up and down the east coast that we've got to somehow pick our way around and avoid. And then the other thing to go on top of that too is if we pick the turbulence. And at our filed altitude, which is 30, 34, 36, where did it go here? 32, boo. Hopefully we get a step climb in there, because 32 seems to be some of the worst of it right here. If I remove that weather radar, you'll see the turbulence here. Pretty bad here initially. I was looking at higher is better, especially as you get further south. So this is why we kind of chose the easterly route. Is we were kind of on top of all the weather, but we're hopefully east of the worst of the turbulence. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. It may be a bumpy ride. We may have the seatbelts on for a good portion of the flight today. But anyways, that's what we're dealing with. Let's hop in the flight deck. Let's get this show on the road here, as they say. Let's get that in the right position. And for some reason, sorry, that defaulted back to, I swear I had it in the right setup here. Give me 1 second here to just see if I can fix this here, because I swear I had this set to my track clip, but then it seems to have deferred back to, there we go, that's better. Okay, so let's go ahead and first flight of the day check. So let's just do configuration safety check. So wipers are on, landing gear levers down, weather radar is Cal, it's off, weather and speed brakes are retracted, engines are off, flaps are 0, parking brake is set, configuration safe checklist complete, and we do the power on checklist. The power on checklist is battery 1 and 2 check off, ensure 25.5 volts or more. We do have 25.5 volts, in which case we can put the batteries on, and if external power is available, we can activate external power. And here comes our airplane to life. Boom, boom, boom. And the very first thing we do once we have power in an airplane is get the IRSs aligning, because that usually is one of the longest things we're usually waiting for. We'll also get the nav lights on, confirm again the park brakes on. Once we get some stuff up here, we'll once we get some data up here, we'll check the fluid levels. And the other thing I'll do as well is I will import my Simbrief flight plan here, and I will probably need to toggle the jetway myself. In theory, if I got in here, that should have been here already, but I just kind of, it was kind of nice having a view without it for once, so I just kind of running with it. So we're going to go ahead and load everything with GSX. And here comes GSX with this, here comes Fenix with the GSX screens. All that stuff's good. All right, and we seem to have screens are working, so let's just check. Engine oil, we definitely have more than 9 quarts. Hydraulic, there's the FAC2 fault. Hydraulic, everything is in the green band for the reservoir. And before I check the oxygen level, I should make sure the oxygen is turned on. So if there is a leak, we'll see it right away. And we've got the auto-flight fault, so let's just go to the doors page for a second. Just say, yep, we do have 1800 PSI, so that is good. Auto-flight FAC2 fault, so let's just do this really quickly here. All right, I'll take an ECAM actions, auto-flight FAC2 fault. So FAC2 off, then on, and if unsuccessful, FAC2 off. So that's the normal procedure. However, the FAC has been MEL'd, so it should have been turned off, and it would have been turned off by the maintenance crew when they came in, but obviously I just booted up the airplane. I did not do that properly. So the FAC2 is now off, and we're just going to clear that FAC2 fault because that's not really relevant to us. And as a result of the FAC2 fault, both PFD on the same FAC, in op systems, autopilot 1, 2, auto thrust, FAC2, that should come up when everything except for FAC2 should come up once we get the IRs aligned. All right. So let's do that, actually. While we're talking about aligning the IRSs, let's do that. Let's go hop in. Let's go to the data page, aircraft status. First of all, we just swap the databases, make sure that's good. And I will put in my performance factor, which I pretty much always put it as +1 now because I find that the airplane doesn't actually follow this. It's just an FMGC calculation, which means the airplane's actually not burning extra fuel. All right, so performance factor +1, and let's see here. Inet, sorry. Having a little momentary mental lapse there. KEWR. Come on. Come on, mouse. You can do it. KTPA for Tampa. So Newark, Tampa. And flight number is JetBlue 573. So JBU 573. IRS initialization. Have I heard of Epidemic Sounds Good Quality Royalty-Free Tunes? You know what? I have not. I will have to look into that. I'm trying to remember to do that after the stream. Not going to spend my time on stream looking for it, obviously. But, okay, so let's go quickly here to the flight log and just check the coordinates of Newark Liberty. I don't know why my mouse is being a little bit jumpy today, but she is. 4041.5 by 7410.1. 4041.5 by 7410.1. That is correct, so we can align on that reference point for the airport. And she's underway. 5 minutes until they're aligned. In the meantime, I can always pull this and at least do a couple of other tasks to sort of get us going while we're waiting for this stuff to happen, including getting some takeoff numbers. So let's go ahead and get an ATIS. Nope. I don't know why that sim link's not working. No, I know why it's not working, because it's not signed in. Of course it's not. Alright, so now it's signed in. Now, let's go back to what I was really trying to do, which was find the FAA's digital ATIS. For Newark specifically would be most helpful. Newark Information X-ray 1351, 09012 is 23, 3 miles of light rain mist, broken at 700. 2977, and ILS 4 right, departing 4 left. So that's the plan. Convective SIGMET, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Swap in effect, severe weather avoidance program. It's a 4-letter word that every pilot hates to see when they're in Newark, because that means ground delays, long ground delays leaving, depending on which way you're going, and probably the direction we were going, we would have a very long delay. So 2977 for left. So let's go ahead and set that up here on the altimeter, because we can do that before the iris align. And I'm hopeful now that sometime in the next, within the next 1 or 2 releases, that this will be improved. So I've had to deal with this for quite a while now. The old-fashioned millibar standby altimeter, which of course is the European way of doing it, but in North America, of course, we use inches of mercury. And certainly my company's Airbuses all have the old-fashioned standby, and they have inches of mercury. They have inches of mercury on there. And Fenix said that they couldn't find anyone who actually had experience with it and actually could send them information about it. So I did send them some information. Basically, it looks exactly the same. The altimeter looks exactly the same, except where it says, if I zoom right in here, but where it says HPA in little tiny blue letters, it says INHG, and then the units are in INHG, but otherwise it looks exactly the same. The altimeter looks exactly the same. So I sent them a couple pictures of it so they could see it, and just work from that, and just, I'm hoping that in the next release, you'll be able to select inches of mercury as your units on the standby instrument, so that finally I can realistically set inches of mercury as our backup on here. I'm hopeful of that anyways. No guarantees, but we're certainly hopeful that they will pay attention to my... they seemed responsive to my post, too. I did post it in their Discord, and they said, Dave, thank you very much for the information. We'll see what we can do. So I feel like it's going to happen. They just didn't have the information before. Anywho, while we're waiting here, the other thing we can do is takeoff performance. So, takeoff performance... Newark, runway 4 left, that is correct. I'm going to say it's going to be a wet runway. I'm going to go out on a limb on this one here. Sync my preliminary load sheet. Optimal flap configuration, force toga, no anti-ice. What's the temperature? I missed that. Kind of important. 7 degrees, so it is icing conditions, so we are going to need engine anti-ice for departure. We'll do a PAX on departure if it'll let us. And sync live weather. And for 4 left, we normally do the intersection, so I'm not going to worry about intersection data. So let's go ahead and calculate, and we got some takeoff numbers here. It looks like it's a flex takeoff, flex of 52, flaps 1 still. So that looks good, so we'll be able to put that in our MCDU when the time comes. All right. Waiting 1 more minute for this to finish aligning, and then away we go getting this airplane all set up. I can put a few more things on here. I can definitely dial those in. And I know what I forgot to do. Boo earns. I did not start up my MiniFCU. I was looking around. I was like, did I remember everything? Did I start everything? I forgot my MiniFCU. So let me just fire that up right now. Give it a couple seconds for it to boot itself and check its system connections. And there it is. And it seems to be working. Let's just check. Let's go ahead and dial the altitude around. Oh yeah, that works. Alright, perfect. So that all works properly. I thought I clicked on constraint, but maybe I didn't. Yeah, hopefully I haven't forgotten anything else. So many things to fire up when you're firing up the sim here. Alright, looks like we are at the end of the IR alignment process here. We do have one FD1, and as we mentioned, both PFDs are on the same VAX. That's not unexpected. Alright, IRs are aligned, so let's go ahead and start the flow here. Let's start setting up.
Roger.
And welcome to my digital FO. Hopefully he doesn't fall asleep on this one. It is synth Deutschland voice, so synthesized German voice today. Let's see how it goes. Alright, so FAC 1's definitely on. That's all good. Let's go through this. CPRs are good. So because it's the first flight of the day, we've got to do a full fire test. And it looks like we're both doing it at the same time. So I push the button, then he pushed the button. Don't start the APU now, buddy. Honestly. Why is it not working? There we go. APU fire test is good. And
I'm out for the Valkyrie.
And he left to do the walk around. He tried to start the APU and I stopped him. Because normally we don't start the APU 30 minutes before departure. Alright, let's see here. So let's just check fuel. Still got FAC 2 fault. Clear the FAC 2 fault, please. Thank you. And you can remove status. Still refueling, so we can't turn the fuel pumps on just yet, but we can turn off the batteries for a quick battery charge check. So both batteries are showing off. Within 10 seconds, it should be less than 60 amps going into each battery. So let's just check here. 60 amps. 59. And the other one's 25. So definitely within 10 seconds it was less than 60 amps, which means that the batteries are sufficiently charged for the departure. And turn these down to a normal level because we never leave them at the 12 o'clock. Pack 2 is off. And everything else is black. Strobes auto. Lights off. Or sorry, nav lights number 1. All the rest of the lights are off. We'll wait to start the APU till a little bit later. No seatbelts till the fueling's done. Is out. fact, fault light is on, off light is on, which is per the MEL. Alright, autopilot auto thrust not on, we're in 100 mode, okay, good. We do have the 1FD1, that's the only abnormality I've noted currently, and that makes sense with the failed system. We can take away the electrical page here. Refueling, no smoking, park brake, TCAS, standby company message. Those are all normal messages at this point in time.
Thank you.
403. Alright. Nav accuracy upgrade. GPS primary. Thank you. I'm gonna get the... I guess I actually have to find out. That's actually the correct CTAF. 18.3 is the correct CTAF for Newark. I think the airplane knew. And maybe it's because I had one of those cases where it spawned in on the runway. I chose a gate and then it spawned on the runway anyways, which is pretty common. 0 feet for arrival makes sense. Status, that all makes sense right now with the engines off. So that was, maybe that's why it came in with the correct frequencies, because it started on the runway and then I moved it to the gate after I loaded it. And... Pineapple Man, hey, how's it going? Why do I not have an ATC? Oh, I did get an auto ATC message. I didn't even hear it. 6771. All right, so the squawk is going to be 6771 for today. Oops. 771. There we go. All right. So quick instrument cross check. 1FD1, 1FD1. We've got altimeters 2977 inches indicating almost 20 feet. 2977 inches, we'll say, indicating about 10 feet. And 2997 inches looks like it indicates about 20 feet. The field elevation in Newark is 11 feet, so that's within reason. And heading looks like 002, 002, 002. First flight of the day, compass check, reasonable. 002, 002. All right, perfect. So that's all good. Let's hop into the box. And I might just need to adjust. There we go. So I can see everything here. I might even just slightly move it that way so you guys can follow along here as we look at our flight plan. Here, somewhere. All right, I'm just going to close that so it gets a little bit wider. Nope, that's what I'm trying to do. All right. Anywho. So we're looking at the... Nope, we're not looking at that page. We're looking at this page to start. A320-200 with a V2527 Alpha 5 engines, effective from the 21st of March to the 17th of April. It is the 3rd of April. Database code and performance factor is +1, +1. Anything to detune? I didn't see anything in the flight plan to detune, so ergo, nothing is deselected. Initialization page. Oh, you know what I didn't do, actually, once it initialized? That's what I didn't do. I didn't actually initialize our VATSIM system, which is what I was waiting for. And for some reason I skipped this step, so let's just quickly do it here. This will mean we can get our secondary information. JetBlue 573, Newark, Tampa, alternate Miami 239, that's all very reasonable. And then we go to the secondary initialization and request our secondary flight plan. You'll see secondary flight plan uplink, secondary flight plan Newark to Tampa, and so that all looks good. So we'll go ahead and activate the secondary, and then now we're ready to go on the init page. Pineapple 787, so I'll just, oh, you're streaming as well. Love the Tampa airport. It's like flying from a 3 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10 airport. Nobody likes Newark. Okay, so again, Newark, Tampa, alternate Miami. Flight number is JetBlue 573. IRS initialization, we did check, it is correct. The cost index for today from our flight plan, cost index is 100. Makes sense because we're into the wind. We're trying to make up as much time as possible to try and get out of that headwind or get through that headwind as quickly as possible. So cost index is 100. Flight level 320 and a deviation of +9. So 100, 320. And -39 actually sounds about right for 320. So we're going to go ahead and clear check takeoff data. We're going to get it in a second. So,
is on the Y40.
wow, I don't know if I can deal with this guy. His accent is a little bit too strong for me. Can I change him to somebody else, please? I'm going to go de-email human black box. So we're going to change the voice. All right, so departure, Newark. We did say 4 left. It'll be the Newark 2 departure, Newark 5 departure it is now. Insert that. And Tampa arrival, what's it estimating? So the flight plan is estimating 28 in Tampa. Oh, I don't think we're going to do 28. I can also find it here. If we scroll down far enough, we'll find weather eventually. Sigmets. Here's Tampa's weather. So 190. Oh, why would we use 28? Eventually it's going to be 210, 230, but it's going to be definitely the 17. So we'll do 17 right, or 19 right, excuse me. ILS 19 right. And of course I didn't look at the star or SID or anything, because why would I do that? It's the Days 1 Banff transition. Days 1 Banff transition. So ILS 19 right. I'm going to remove that approach via for now. Days 1 Banff transition. Very good. Step climbs. There are no step climbs listed. We're going to be 32 the whole way. And probably keeps us out of the wind a little bit. What was the other thing? No user-defined waypoints. Total distance today of 919, and I've got ground distance 969. That's pretty reasonable with a more straight-in runway at 19 right, so a little bit less distance on here than on the flight plan because we're planning straight in, so that kind of makes sense. All right, so let's see if the storage function works today. GPU 573. Works maybe about 30% of the time, which is more than it used to. So let's see here. What we're looking for is out of Newark, we're looking for Elve, Neck, White, Q409, Puppy, and Banff. So Elve, Neck, White, Q409 from White to Puppy, and then direct Banff, Days 1 there. All right, Banff. Not Banff, Banff with an M. Yeah. I went to Banff a long time ago, like almost 20 years ago now. Holy moly. More than 20 years ago. No, more than 20 years ago. Holy jeez. One of the first vacations I ever took as an adult was going out to the Rockies. All right. Yeah, flight plan's all good. Secondary flight plan, we'll just simply copy the active and then we'll put the immediate return back onto Newark's 4 right. So after the flight plan discon, we're going to put in KEWR and put in an ILS to 4 right. So if anything dire happens on departure.
The security and safety check are all done. Are we good to start boarding?
Go for it.
Okay.
Pretty sure GSX is probably almost done boarding now, I think. Let's check here. Boarding completed. Yeah, GSX is completed boarding. Anywho, yeah, so now we've got an immediate return after the discon, Kilma, Gritty, doing ILS 4 right. So that's all in there in case we have an immediate return. Otherwise, an at Bravo page. So taxi fuel point 2. Let's just check out the rest of these here. So route reserve will be 0. Alternate we'll put 1. We'll put 2 and 1.1 for the final. So 0.2 sounds reasonable for the taxis. Alternate, we said 2 and 1.1 for the final. 1.1 for the final. Very good. ZFW. And for this, I should be able to just look over here and go VATSIM. It should have some preliminary information, if not final numbers already in here. Load sheet. This is a final load sheet. So 60.8 by 32.1. 60.8, 32.1. 60.8 by 32.1 gives me, oh, and then I need a block fuel, so that was a little crunchy, but anyways, 13,600. So 13,600, and gives me a takeoff weight of 74.2. We'll check it again a little bit later, and the wind component average, as I said before, minus 77, not headwind, should recalculate here, give me, let's see, So we're looking for 7.8 for 239. I've got 7.9 for 233. That's pretty darn close. And extra 2.6. So I got 1.5 here. I got almost 2.1 here plus 4. That's 2.5. That's within reason. At that point, it's a rounding error. So that seems very reasonable. So I will go ahead and zero out the winds. Request the actual winds. That button should be there. On our aircraft, it's the R2 button, not the R3 button. There's the wind data uplink. And it's blue in all the phases of flight. Alright, so the performance page. So again, let's just really quickly check this. We said 74.2 is our takeoff weight. I'm going to go ahead and do this and just see what we got over here. If I can zoom in on this. 74.2. So we need to go up a little bit on this. So let's go 74.3. Give it a little margin in case we don't burn too much fuel while we're taxiing. 74.3. I don't know why it doesn't want to accept my... What happened to my flight plan? Weird. Weird. Optimal force token O, anti-ice engine packs on. Seems to have reset itself completely there. That's fine. So 74.3, and I can't remember what the Mach takeoff weight was. Mach takeoff weight 28.5. So 28.5. Oops. 28.5. That's probably what I did. I probably accidentally hit the reset button. Oh, that's a horrible place to have the reset button. It's a wet runway for departure. Okay, let's try this again. That's a horrible place to have a reset button. 74.3, because if there's any, you go to press enter, and instead you press reset. 29.5? I've forgotten again. Alright, sync the live weather, calculate. Alright, so now we've got some numbers. Send that to the MCDU. And we got some numbers here. Alright, so for 4 left, no takeoff shift, flaps 1, 51 degree flex, V1 144, VR 159, V2 160, standard transition 18,000, 1510 across the bottom, and I believe we want to change that to 1010 for a noise 2 departure that I recall. Oops, 1010. Come on. You can do this. I believe in you. 1010. And 229 is the green dot speed, so we'll pre-select that for the climb. Alright, that's all set. In cruise, we're supposed to be doing, we won't tell us now, but JetBlue is 573. Optimal's at 320, cruising at 320, the max at 358. Let's just go ahead and put KEWR-KTPA right, in case you have to come back, and that's half a mile away. That's fine. GPS primary, nav accuracy is high. Drifts are navs and 0.9, 0.8. Very reasonable. Alright, we have no New York ATC online? No, we do not. So we've got our squawk code in there. Let's just have a quick look at the waypoints on the departure, and then we're going to talk about the MELs before we do the whole briefing. So, let's go flight plan. Alright, so it's a bit of a complex departure today. If I can pull up my Navigraph. I had it up and then I closed it down. Give it 1 second to load here. It's a bit of a complicated departure out of Newark here, so let's just bring this up. Newark. Show me the charts for Newark. SIDS, Newark, 5 departure off the 4s. Alright. So let's get rid of that. Okay, so it is a little bit of a complex departure. So radar TV means required 4 left. 11 simultaneous receptions of the Newark ILS and DME required. All aircraft ATC gradients, fun to accept ATC climb rates. Okay, so initial climb, 4 left or right, heading 039 to 500 feet. And I don't know if you guys can see this in there, but let's just have a look. 500 feet, 039. Then it's a, and I can do this now, just to make it a little bit easier to kind of see what I'm doing. I just find circling it just makes it jump out of the page. I can sit back to it very quickly here. Climb right turn to heading 055 till we get to 4 DME from IEZA. Then climbing left turn heading 290. Across the Teterboro 214 radial westbound at or above 2500, climb maintain 3000. So that all appears to be in there. For reference, we can put a couple more things in there. So for RadNav, we can put IEZA, and that way it'll also appear on our RadNav in case we lose the FMS for some reason. We can still fly the SID properly. And flight plan, let's go up here. Go fix info. So first of all, IEZA, we can even back it up this way and say 4 mile radius. And next we can also do TEB 214 radial. So we have to cross the TEB 214 radial. And that's this one right here, 214 radial, at or above 2500, maintain 3000. Alright, so that's all in the box. We are going to get the runway LS mismatch because that's the DME for the 4 right side. So we're going to do this turn at 4 DME. We can come back to the left, but we also have to make sure we are west of that Teterboro radial before we climb any higher. All right. So now the most complicated part of this whole departure here, so much for leaving at 20 after. Well, we tried. Is the MELs. I think I pulled it up here somewhere. Yes, here's my MEL sheet. All right, so it's the only one I can find on the internet. It works. It gets the job done. It shows us everything we need to see. So we're going to go to 2260 first of all, chapter 22 auto flight, and scroll down till we get 2260, which is pretty close to the bottom here. All right, and we'll read the MELs, then we'll read the procedures. So 2260.02 is FAC 2, may be an operative provided that all ADIRs, ELACs, SECs, SFCCs, LGCIUs, and RAs are operative, and rudder travel limiter system 2 is considered an operative. Refer to yaw damper system, rudder trim system, so those are the extra MELs we triggered. So all these other things are functional that we know of, and then we have to refer to our operations procedure. So we'll circle back to that operations procedure. Right here is yaw damper system, 2 installed, one may be an operative, so the one associated with FAC 2 is an operative. There's a procedure with that. And then we also have 272201. So we're looking for 2722. Here it is, 01 Bravo. 2 installed, 1 required. Rudder trim 2, system 2 may be an operative. And 2301, which is 2301 Alpha. Rudder travel limiter system 2 installed, 1 required, 1 may be an operative. So because of FAC 2, we've lost 1 of each of these systems. Let's just go to our ops procedures, which is funny that they're in a different chapter, but anywho. Let's go down to 60. Oh, too far. Any second now here, should be 60. 60.02 Alpha.
Hi guys, here is the load sheet for you.
Thank you.
No problem. Have a safe flight.
All right. Oh, not that one. This one. Okay. For aircraft with RMP AR line capability, RMP AR operation not permitted. Max line capability is Cat 3 single. If the auto-flight FAC 2 alert is displayed on the EWD or if erroneous speeds are displayed, so we did get FAC 2 fault, pull the circuit breakers. So that should have been done already. So auto-flight FAC 2. 121 VU, so pull that, make sure the push button switches off. So M19 on 121 VU, so let's do that right now because we did get that alert a number of times. So here's column 19, M19, and I might need to do this as well, so I might need to just do this so I can actually see it very carefully here. So M19, so 28, FAC 2 28 volt DC. And yeah, I know I'm really close to your head, I'm sorry. I had to pull that circuit breaker. Alright. So no RNPAR, it's Cat 3 single only. We've pulled the circuit breaker, the FAC 2 switch, I did see it earlier, it was off, the white light was on. Yaw damper 2, there's no procedure. Max landing capability. Oh yeah, max landing capability is Cat 3 single. Same for that one, and I think the other ones are going to say the same thing. So 27, 22, and 23. 272201 Bravo, max landing capability, Cat 3 single. And 272301 Alpha. There's nothing for that one. 27, no. So there's no procedure associated with that. So Cat 3 single is the maximum capability for today. It should be VFR once we get to Tampa, so we should be good. All right, I'm going to start the APU now, and we'll do a briefing. Are you ready for the departure briefing?
Go ahead.
All right, circuit breaker tripped, rear left panel J to M. All right, so let's just verify that the only circuit breaker tripped on the J to M row is the one I pulled intentionally. That is true, so we can go ahead and clear CB. Status, no change in status, remove status, remove status. All right, and that's good. Okay, so departure today is the Newark 5 departure out of Newark, New Jersey, Liberty International. Radar required. We've already read the notes. Lost comms are right there in the top right corner, and the routing constraints are always published with a top altitude of 3,000. 3,000 feet is set. Roger, 3,000. Noise abatement, there's nothing published specifically, but following the SID does achieve noise abatement, and on the company pages, so we'd say that there's not a mountainous airport, level of service not an issue. We can check the Newark pages here, but I imagine we're probably good down to like a 600 RVR departure, or probably 500 RVR departure since it's the US. No, that's not what I'm looking for. There we go. Takeoff minimums. So takeoff and obstacle departure procedures, runways 4 left, 4 right. 2 operating RVRs are required. We can go as low as RVR 500 with centerline and high intensity runway lighting, which we do have, as long as it's all turned on. 500 RVR is the minimum for departure, so we could definitely get out without being able to get back in. We don't need a takeoff alternate because the ceiling's at 700 feet and 3 miles. That is sufficient to depart without a takeoff alternate unless the weather's come down. Just going to recheck here. It's still 3 miles and broken 700 on the VATSIM weather. Yeah, and engine failure procedure, so if we've already started the SID turns, we'll follow the SID. If we haven't started the SID turns, we'll continue runway heading to at least 3,000 feet. Let's see here, the performance in the box for today, for the departure off of runway 4 left, it's a left seat departure off a wet runway, no takeoff shift, flaps 1, flex of 51, V1 144, VR 158, V2 160, standard transition of 18,000, 1010 across the bottom for the noise 2 departure, 229 the green dot speed is pre-selected for the climb. It'll be a managed departure. We got climb blue, nav blue because it's going to be IMC pretty quick. I'm just going to get the autopilot on within the first 1,000 feet, and then we'll get the flap retraction and everything going. We don't have any ATC online. Hopefully nobody pops online during the departure process. If they do, we'll fly the airplane first and deal with ATC second. That's all I've got. Comments, questions, or threats? Threats, the wet runway and the wet conditions. So we do have planned with engine anti-ice. We do have wet numbers planned. You can see the V1 VR split there as indication that they are wet numbers for the reject.
Welcome on board today.
That's the biggest threat, really. High density airspace around New York. There's not too much going on right now. I'm just going to check online. Let's see here. And in the real, or in the VATSIM world, there's very little going on in the New York area, and we're the only people who like Newark, so that's fine.
If you are unable to accommodate any item in the cabin, please bring it to the boarding door.
Yeah, that's about all I got. Fact 2 is obviously the MEL's a bit of a threat. We've discussed it. No Cat 3 singles. Even if we lose the other fact, we lose the autopilot, we lose the auto thrust, but we still maintain Cat 1 capability at least. It is good enough to come back. We don't need a takeoff alternate. It is not low visibility procedures at this point in time. I think that's everything I've got. Any questions?
No questions.
Before start checklist.
Parking brake.
Set. Set. Set and checked.
Takeoff speeds and thrust.
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback.
V1 144, VR 159, V2 160, flexing 51 degrees.
V1 131, VR 144, V2 147, flex temp 48 degrees. Windows.
Departure checks completed. Bypass pin inserted.
Repeat last.
Locking
Windows.
gear.
Closed.
Are you sure about that? Beacon.
On.
Before start checklist completed.
You say windows, right? Doors or windows? There he goes. Okay, all right, all good.
Release parking brakes, please.
All right, I think we're all good to go.
Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
Brakes are off, ready for pushback. Lane start to advised. Starting engine 2.
Okay.
Alright, starting the IAE engines. I'm still not totally used to them, but there's 25%. We've got ignition, we got some fuel flowing, we got a very slowly crawling EGT. You should see N1 pop up any second now. We definitely have oil pressure. No doubt about that. Alright, very slowly getting there. The IAEs definitely start slower than the CFMs. The CFMs start quick. Sometimes surprisingly quick. I'm just going to get rid of this before I mark something up on that page. All right.
Please set parking brakes.
Starting engine 1.
Okay.
Brakes are set. Confirm the pins are moved. Here comes engine 1. Oh, we left a little bit behind schedule. We left about 6 minutes behind schedule. That's not bad in the grand scheme of things. We had a pretty complicated MEL to talk about. It would help if I turned on the fuel pumps before departure.
Unlocking gear.
We do have fuel in the center tank, so we'll put that on as well. Alright. That's another one that's missing from the Airbus checklist, but it's on our company's
Tow
checklist
truck
because
disconnected.
it's
Bypass
such
pin
an easy
removed.
disconnect. You can sometimes make it through the first part of the flow and not have to put
Left
the
is
fuel
clear,
pumps on
right
because
is
the
clear.
fueling's not done. Alright, there goes our tug and a tow bar. There goes the power transfer. Alright, engines 2 and 1 are both normal. She's got the pin, thank you. She, he, I think she. I can't tell from here. Anyways, they've got the pin. After start checklist.
Anti-ice.
Engines anti-ice on. Engine anti-ice on.
Cam status.
Checked.
Pitch trim.
Point 2 down set. Set and checked.
Rudder trim.
Neutral.
After start checklist completed.
Alright.
Ready.
Clear left side.
Clear right side.
And the one thing I do want to check is just make sure that we are tracking here. And it looks like we are tracking. I do have pre-flight stage. In the second, that's going to probably trigger into the taxi phase here. I'll put the wipers on, but I don't think it's going to do much good.
Flight controls.
I swear I muted you, buddy, because I didn't want you to hear me talking for a second there so I could talk about stuff. So, alright, here we go. We are taxiing. Now, normal departure from this terminal in Newark, if you're in a force configuration, is just to go straight ahead. Basically go right out onto Alpha 12, which is what we're almost on here, to cut over to the second lane here. So we'll do over here. Cancel checklist.
Roger.
Brake check.
Pressure 0.
For the flight control check, we're going to need a straightaway, so we're going to have to do this cutover, and once we get through the turn, then we're going to do the check here. Come on. This thing can get moving anytime now. Getting a little bit sluggish here today. Farewell, Newark. There's a reason why very few people fly into your airport on VATSIM. Because nobody wants to fly into Newark. Alrighty. So we're going to make a left here, then we have to make the second right out of the apron here. Not into the FedEx apron, but on the outer taxiway. Alright. She is fully loaded. She does not want to move. I have to say, like, Fenix, I think, also did a better job with the ground maneuvering on the last update. It feels heavier. It takes more effort to get this airplane moving sometimes when it's heavily loaded. And yet, once you do get it moving, it tends to keep on moving, which is the way a real jet functions. The wheels, nothing turns the wheels except the fact that the airplane is moving over the ground. So it's all about just inertia and overcoming the rolling friction of the wheels. So that first rolling friction, it tends to take a lot of effort to get it moving. And once it gets moving, it's hard to slow an airplane down again. Alright, let's go ahead. We don't need the APU anymore. I think that's supposed to be part of the after start flow, but Airbus relies mostly on flows and very little in the way of checklists. It's almost to the point where it's too little. Alright, so we'll take the next right turn there on what I believe is Bravo. And then we'll do the checklist. In the meantime, this definitely should have triggered now to show us that we're taxiing, I hope. Taxi out. It does say taxi out, so it knows that we are moving. Alright, it is tracking the flight successfully. We get on the straightaway, we got a lot of stuff to do in the straightaway, so we don't necessarily want to go that fast on the straightaway. Flight control check. Flight control check.
Ready. Full up. Full down. Neutral. Full left. Full right. Neutral.
Rudder.
Full left. Full right. Neutral.
I just love that the pedal disconnect works now. Love that so much. Flight deck.
The cabin is now secure for takeoff.
Thank you. Normally, Captain would not answer that, but anyways. Taxi checklist.
Takeoff runway. Takeoff runway confirmed. Approach path clear of traffic. Cabin crew be seated for takeoff.
Cancel checklist.
Roger.
Taxi checklist.
Flight controls.
Checked.
Checked. Flap setting.
Config 1+F.
Config 1+F. Radar and predictive wind shear system.
On and on.
Engine mode selector.
Normal.
ECAM memo.
Checked. Takeoff, no blue.
Taxi checklist
Once
completed.
again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board our flight today.
Alright,
This
I
is
think
the
we're ready.
flight attendant speaking. Please direct your attention to the cabin crew for important safety information.
Ready?
There is an instruction
He looks
card
ready.
in your seat pocket that illustrates the safety equipment on this
You
aircraft.
got the cabin secure already. Everything is coming up us. Alright, that's actually pretty good though. We're at the runway ready to depart about 12 minutes after we started the pushback. It's pretty good.
Placards fasten your seatbelt by inserting the metal tips into the
Newark
buckle.
traffic. JetBlue 573 is taking position runway 4 left for departure on the Newark 5 departure.
On the buckle. It is our policy that you keep your seatbelt fastened at all times while seated.
Clear left side.
Doors are clearly marked
Clear
with
right
exit
side.
signs and instructions for door operation.
Runway entry
Each
procedure.
door is equipped with an escape slide. Locate the exit nearest
Takeoff runway confirmed. Approach path clear of traffic.
behind you.
Cabin crew be seated
In
for
an
takeoff.
emergency, lights will illuminate the aisle. The cabin is pressurized. If there is a loss of cabin pressure, a panel will open and oxygen masks will appear. Remain seated with your seatbelt fastened and pull a mask towards you to start the flow of oxygen.
Line up
Oxygen will be
checklist.
flowing to the mask even though the bag may not inflate.
Takeoff runway.
Cover your nose and mouth with the
4
mask.
left confirmed.
Place the elastic
Runway
band
04
around your head and
left
tighten by
confirmed.
pulling on the end.
TCAS.
Secure your own mask before assisting others.
TARA
Your seat bottom
Packs
cushion
1
may
and
be
2.
used as a flotation device.
on.
Pull up and remove
Lineup
the
checklist
cushion.
completed.
Upon exiting the aircraft, place your arms around the cushion and hold on to the straps located on the back. This is a non-smoking flight. Smoking is not permitted in the cabin or laboratory. Cabin lights
Take
will
off.
now be turned off.
Check.
Leaving light buttons are located above your seat. Thank you for your attention.
And flex 51. SRS auto thrust blue.
Anti-ice.
On.
ECAM status.
Cancel checklist.
Roger. Thrust set 100 knots. E1. Rotate. Positive climb.
Gear up.
Gear up.
Nav. Autopilot 1.
You have control. Pitch. Bank. $1,000.
Climb all blue. Thrust climb. Auto thrust. Boy, that kind of performance just died. The FPS went to like 5 there on the takeoff roll. Did not make it easy to keep it straight when you're trying to react to what the airplane did 3 seconds ago. Flap 0.
Speed checked. Flaps 0.
Alright, so there's the 4 DME fix. And we're now in the left turn. There's 2,500 for 3,000.
Radar altimeter alive.
Speed, Alt Star. Alright, we have no ATC. Flight level 320 is set. That's CB tripped on the left rear panel. Disregard. Alright, and we should be able to go direct to our next fix here. Don't know quite what it's trying to do here with the drawing it has there, but anyways. Let's go ahead and go direct LV. Insert. Alright, so there's direct LV. Climbing through 4100. After takeoff checklist. After takeoff checklist. Cancel checklist. Flaps 0.
Speed checked. Flaps 0.
Okay, apparently my FO is not going to disarm the spoiler, so I did it. That's fine. Let's see here, how are we doing there? TAT's plus 17. We can kill the engine anti-ice for now with the speed. We got TAT at plus 17. That's good. Alright, and let's go ahead to ECAM actions. Alright, CB tripped rear panel. So again, check this and just make sure J to M. The only one that's tripped is the one that I pulled out the FAC2. So you can go ahead and clear CB. Clear CB and status. Alright, stop ECAM. We're actually not doing too bad out here. We're accelerating. We're in the turn. No... Let me think here. No outstanding checklists or procedures at this time. Temperature's still good without the engine anti-ice. And yeah, continue ECAM. Alright, status. Both PFTs are on the same FAC, and Cat 3 single only, Cat 3 dual, and FAC 2 are both in op. That's the same as before. Clear, remove status. Remove status. Alright.
Ladies and gentlemen,
ECAM actions are complete.
Shortly if you are making a
Yeah, that was a horrible
flight.
departure, only from the sense that like I couldn't even deal with it because it was so choppy, and that's the trouble with New York. It doesn't help that it's raining, so that just puts additional strain on the GPU.
Secured for landing. We'll be collecting all service items, newspapers, and any other items.
Better than my last departure, I think. Called bank angle and pitch, but I didn't even see what was going on with the bank angle and pitch because by the time I was reacting, the plane had already started to turn the other way anyways. Alright, there's 10,000 climbing, flight level 320.
Carry-on items. Please use caution when opening overhead bins as items may have shifted during our flight. Please stow your tray tables and return your seats to their upright position.
Autopilot 1 on.
Check the security of your seatbelts. We will be landing shortly. Thank you.
I don't know why it thinks. Why it seems to think we're in the descent phase now. It seems to have gotten the descent phase, and it does not want to seem to go anywhere else. Is there a after takeoff checklist on this SOP? There's a lineup, departure change, and then the next checklist, approach checklist. So I don't know why it's stuck in an approach phase kind of deal here, but it is. Alright, so we've got seatbelts on, that's fine. TCAS standby, so I'm not sure why the TCAS went to standby. For some reason, this keeps getting flicked off every once in a while. I don't know if it's FS2 crew doing it or what. Alright, but we're above 10,000, so we can go ahead and go into airports mode here. We can also clear our RadNav, which will get rid of that message as well. So now we've got auto-tune on the RadNav. We can also go and take out our 2 fixes because we passed through all the stuff on the SID. We don't need them anymore. So we can clear that, and we can clear that. Secondary, we can recopy to the active. We can recheck the prog page. 320 is the cruise. 330 is the optimal. 361 the max. That's all good. We've got 21.5. Guard is up on number 2. We are listening. Cabin is pressurizing 3.7 psi, cabin altitude 3,200, and the fuel, the cross feed or the center tank feeding just started there, but we've got, let's see here, so we've got 5, that's 10, 11, 3, 12, 7, 12, 6, very good, and then plus 990, that takes us to about 13.6, which I believe was what we started with, as I recall, so that's good. No fuel leak, we're good. Temperature-wise, we have to keep an eye on this temperature as we continue southbound. It is going to get colder as we get higher, and eventually we are going to need that. We're going to need the temperature on. There's some buildups notched into this, so I'm going to pull speed here. I'm going to bring the speed back to at least 330. Give us at least 20 knots below the red line here, because I can see some kind of convective activity in here. That looks like some unpleasant clouds to fly through, in, or around. And I'd have the weather radar up if it actually worked in the sim. That's one thing that, it was kind of nice when that started to work in the previous version of the sim, when we used to, when the PMDG had a weather radar feed that worked with the active sky weather, and so you could actually see thunderstorm cells and avoid them on your radar. Now, the thing about it was that it was not always the best in terms of where Active Sky put the cells. It basically put them into like a grid. So you'd have like this grid of like 4 cells high by 3 cells wide that you're trying to go around, and they'd be like perfectly gridded, which of course the real world is not like that at all. The real world is very dynamic. It's very irregular and somewhat seemingly random anyways. Definitely that, but just the fact that you could actually see it on there and you could actually try to avoid it, that it was on there, it was something you could see and try to deal with, was just fantastic. And I hope that that's something that MSFS will kind of work towards, because that's a big part of being a pilot, an airline pilot, especially en route in the US in the summer. It's just avoiding thunderstorms constantly. They're everywhere. There's always some somewhere. You've got to avoid them. Sometimes it's a long line, sometimes it's a couple of isolated cells here and there that are easy to pick around, but you've got to work around them, and that's something that is definitely missing from MSFS, is correlating that outside weather picture that I'm looking at out the window to what's on the radar, and being able to avoid the heaviest precipitation and potentially dangerous turbulence, hail, things beyond the aircraft's limits by looking down at the weather radar. That is something I would love to see. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know how capable it is, because that is a lot of information too. When it comes down to it, 100%, like that, I agree. It's a lot of information for a sim to have to process present. There's enough stuff going on in the visual dimension without having to think in the background and process an additional dimension of, okay, so where is the precipitation? What is the precipitation doing? I understand why that's a hard limitation, but nevertheless, I would love to see it, because that is a big part of it. That's a big part of trying to make it real. Is you're trying to come up with strategic plans, usually well in advance, of like, okay, which way are we going to go around this particular weather system? We're going to go left, we're going to go right. Can we keep our present heading right through the middle? Like, what can we do here? And we're already getting, we don't have a whole lot of wind right now, but there we go. Now we've rolled out on a heading here. It's just going to take us just to the right of the cell. But even then, the cells often are not too violent in the sim. They tend to be fairly docile compared to the real world.
New traffic, Waterski 2416, coming in for the ILS runway 4 right.
Alright, I'm going to get rid of him because we are well away from Newark, and we can switch to Unicom. I might even cut the speed back another 20 or another 10 or 20 knots. If you actually look at the recommended turbulence entry speeds at below 20,000 feet for the Airbus, it's depending on the model, but usually for the A320s, it's 250 knots. It's the recommended entry speed. And then once you get above 20,000, it's 275 or Mach 7.6, whichever is slower. Just cut the corner of this thing here. In theory, it would be pretty bumpy right here, but I find the sim does not correlate that too well. Usually when the sim induces turbulence, it's usually because, sometimes it's because of gusty winds on the ground, but more often it's because there was a sudden speed wind shift when a new data set was downloaded. The sim suddenly said, nope, this is the wind now. No gradual transition for you. All right, I think we're doing okay though. I think that was a better departure than last time. It was a little bit choppy for the frame rate. Didn't help that we were kind of low visibility environment with rain going and everything else. Definitely did not help. All right, let's transition to Mach 0.70. That's okay for now. How's the temperature doing now? Now we're got a tad of +8. So we're just about to hit this here. Our SAT is -18. We're kind of between layers, so I can leave the anti-ice off for a tiny bit here. Let's see how it goes. But we are kind of constantly strategizing over these things as well. How best to get from point A to point B. While making it comfortable for the passengers. Like, I think a lot of times people think that the pilots don't even care. It's amazing how much effort is expended trying to find smooth rides on a lot of days, and how much communication with ATC happens trying to find the altitudes that might have smooth air, that might not have any turbulence. And a lot of effort is often expended on it. And when you get into the cruise phase, there's not a whole lot else going on besides trying to find a smooth environment. Not always the case. Sometimes things do happen. You do get situations that pop up on the airplane, whether they've been mechanical or human in nature. When I think human, I'm thinking Mach 7.2 for now. When I think human, I'm talking about things like medical issues or even potentially security incidents. But there are things that happen en route, but usually they're not that. There's usually not all. They don't happen all that often in the en route phase, and when they do, they're usually not like critical and time critical. So we often end up standard set standard. For some reason, it thinks we're in the descent phase. I don't know why. It wants me to turn on the localizer, do a nav accuracy check. It thinks we're in the descent phase. It thinks we passed through 18,000 on the descent, not the climb. So, well, FS2 crew, I feel like it's getting harder and harder to use FS2 crew. I feel like the odds of me successfully completing an FS2 crew flight it's lower every single time. I feel like I can't remember the last time I really successfully completed an FS2 crew flight, where there wasn't some kind of glitch that I had to fight with. And I get it, it's complicated, but it just feels like with MSFS, it feels like it's fallen down. It feels like it's harder to make the system do what you want than it was before. I think we need to go back to having like a drop-down list that allows you to change your location in the script, because I feel like it often gets lost. It misinterprets some command, and then it ends up in the wrong phase of flight, and all of a sudden you're in the approach checklist or something like that. All right, there's Charlie Yankee November. Still kind of dreary out here. We do have the NTIs on now, right? Yeah, we do have engine NTIs on. Seem to be doing okay. I don't know why the fuel page is still up. I thought I'd get rid of that, but that's okay. Got no engine vibrations to worry about. Everything seems to be doing all right. And we're just got to pick our way southbound. Hopefully we don't get too much turbulence. We are definitely getting the wind. I can see we got almost 72 knots straight on the nose right now, so we are grounding 371. It's not bad. And we'll be keeping the speed up as best we can, as much as the ride permits. And it's actually not too bad. I think we passed the convective activity, so I think I might put this back into managed for the climb now. And it looks like it's going to climb at 300 knots anyways. Or is it Mach 7.4 maybe? We'll get ourselves up to cruise, and then we'll start processing some other checks. And this is one of the hardest things to do, I have to say. Like, I have begun to really put a focus into managing the aircraft in the sense of avoiding distraction. And of course, streaming, of course, is a distraction when you're doing this, and this is a simulation, but avoiding doing anything that's not an essential flight task in the climb or in the descent phase until you level off in cruise. We avoid as much as possible doing any kind of non-essential flight task, and that could be a lot of stuff. Sorry, I'm just trying to rearrange my screen here. But the things you feel compelled to do, and it can be the hardest thing in the world to say, oh, I could just quickly and easily do this, but it's as much about the discipline, it's as much as about, that this is not the appropriate time to do this, that there will be time later, and we live in this, and I think that our human nature has been eroded even more by the society we live in, where it's all about the do it now society. So if you think about something, you do it now. And part of that too, I think, is just you don't want to forget something important that you thought of right now and forget to do it later. But it's important to remain focused on our primary task at hand, which is the primary task at hand is flying the airplane, is managing the airplane. And even if the autopilot is the one doing the flying, it's still incumbent upon the pilots to sit here and watch the autopilot, make sure it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And if there's something that's not going the way it's supposed to, obviously take control, take action to either change the autopilot or take the autopilot out of the equation if necessary. It's so easy to sort of fall into this false sense of security that the autopilot always seems to get me there, so I'm just going to continue to let it do its thing. And it's like, that's really not what you're being paid to be here for. You're being paid to sit here, manage the autopilot, and monitor the autopilot, and ensure it is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So it can be very hard. I mean, it can be something as simple as, oh, I got to grab the ATIS, or oh, I've got to do this. I've got to call the company station. I keep looking down here at the memo page down here, and I keep seeing the company messages like, oh, they wanted delay code because we left 6 minutes late, and there's 310 climbing 320, and I want to do it. I want to do it, and it's taken so much mental willpower right now to say no, don't do it yet. When we level off will be the appropriate time to take that action, but in the meantime, monitor the climb. It's so hard. It's so hard not to do these things. It takes a really disciplined person to say, no, it's not the appropriate time to do this, even if it is a simple, small task. If it's not a flight essential task, you don't do it when you're even in the climb or the descent. Only essential tasks should be done in the climb and descent, and especially right now when you're over the house speed level off, only critical tasks. For the most part, you should be watching this airplane to make sure that it does hit Mach alt star. You do see the vertical speed decelerating as you approach the level off altitude. You see all this stuff happen the way it's supposed to, and if it doesn't, you take over before it gets out of control. I like that. The investigator says the flight crew was updating their stream chat. Exactly. Oh, thank you for that. That is hilarious. But that's, yeah, it's, I'm trying to show you here, even as I'm sort of talking through it mentally, but I'm trying not to do other tasks. I really want to send that company message. I really want to do these things, and I'm trying to show you, like, it can be. It's so difficult. I mean, and I think we can all be guilty of this. How many of us have, you know, your phone rings or your phone chimes, and it's like, oh, put down whatever you're doing right now and just check what the message says. Even if you're driving down the highway at 65 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour, we all feel compelled to do that. We're so used, I think it's part of us is we're trained to respond to these stimuli now. I mean, that's the way the human brain is worked. You receive a stimuli and you respond to it accordingly. That's the way the brain works. It makes a connection between this stimulus means do this. When your little chirp or your ping goes off, it means check your cell phone. And it's so hard for us to be disciplined to say, no, it's not the appropriate time to do that. And it's hard for pilots to do the same thing. It's very easy for us, and it's not that we're necessarily checking our cell phone, but there are other tasks sometimes that need to get done, and we are go-getters. We want to get these things done ahead of time as much as possible. We know the risk of not doing these things ahead of time. Okay, let's have a little look-see here. Yeah, we are at sat of minus 44, so even though we're in cloud, because we're below minus 40 degrees Celsius outside temperature, we can actually take the anti-ice off. There's going to be so little moisture in this cloud that we can actually leave that off. All right, and we'll do a quick cruise check here. So let's just check through the aircraft. Boy, this sim is slow today. What is going on with this sim? It really does not like it when I look around suddenly with the track IR, does it? All right, it seems to be pretty smooth. I'm going to take a risk and take the belts off. It's still FAC 2 still off over there. That's fine. I don't know why my computer today, my sim seem to be a little bit more sluggish than normal. At times it seems okay, but then at times it's just a little bit jerky. I don't know what's going on. What is churning up all of this processor power here? Curious to just fire up my task manager really quick and have a look, because it just feels like something is grinding away at it right now, and it's not usually the case. It's usually pretty good. The only thing that's really running that's using much resources is Fenix, OBS, and Flight Sim. So it's just the streaming software and the sim itself. There's not much I can do about that. I can't remove any one of those in the equation. I can remove OBS, but that'd be a very boring stream if you're looking at a blank screen. So he's got terrain on ND up on his side. That's fine if you really want to do that. Unicom's up, everything's stowed. Decline detent. Everything seems to be exactly where it's supposed to be, and let's just have a quick look at the all the SD pages as well and make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. Those all look normal. Those look very reasonable. I almost never see an airplane where they're perfectly matched though. Usually there's always a little bit of differentiation between the two sides. It's very seldom you see them look matched. Alright, that's normal for it to drop like that when the gear is up. Like the center tank is almost empty. I'll turn off the pumps in a second here before they fall off. Alright, gonna see some amber on here probably. don't actually have FAC. We have Helax and Sex indicated on there. We don't even have that FAC on there, so that's good. Alright, everything seems to be operating normally. Let's just go in here really quickly and check, because I know what it's going to say. It's going to say send a message. It's not. It's just waiting for me to clear off the prelim message. Oh, it didn't even send me a delay message. Nice. Haha. Well, then I'm not going to send a delay code back. Haha. Oh, and here comes the turbulence. So let's go ahead and go Mach 7.6 for a bit here. Give us some margin. And the nice thing about Mach 7.6 is a nice big margin below the red line. About a 20 knot margin below the red line. So that gives you at least some room to absorb some turbulence. The trouble with running cost index 100 and trying to do Mach 8.0 is in turbulent conditions is, of course, you're running right against that red line. You hit turbulence at the wrong moment, boom. Now you've got an aircraft an overspeed inspection to do. So we don't want to be doing that. There's the moon up there. Let's see. So what else can we talk about today? I really didn't notice all that much. It doesn't feel like all that long since I did my last stream. In all honesty, the previous one it was like 3 weeks, so there's lots of stuff to talk about. This one, not so much. Yeah, I can't even really think of anything offhand. Topics I was going to talk about. There was one or two things that kind of, echoed in the back of my mind, and yeah, a little bit of a disaster this morning. Let me just see if I can. Yeah. What was I going to say here? Yeah, so we had a little bit of a mini disaster this morning, and it's funny because this harkens right back to the previous disaster I was talking about in the last stream, where, of course, I broke my phone through my own sheer negligence, and that's my own fault, and I can deal with that, and so be it. But yeah, this morning my daughter woke up and woke me up. I had to wake up early because she's going on a school trip today, a 3-day school trip, which is great. However, she woke me up this morning and said, my phone's not working. And sure enough, the screen was completely frozen, and it looked like it froze last night at about 8 o'clock when just about the time she went to bed, just almost 9 o'clock, I guess, at the time she went to bed, and it still had the same time on there, and that was it. Like, nothing you could do could seem to do anything. The phone was completely frozen, not even doing the soft reset buttons, even the hard reset didn't reset the phone. All the hard reset did was it turned off the screen, but it didn't even reboot the phone, and the little indicator light on it still kept flashing even after the hard reboot. So I don't know what happened there. Never seen that phone do that before, but yeah, it didn't turn into a disaster, but it was a little bit of a disaster because you're away from home. Like, you want to be able to talk to people and communicate, especially first time going on a big long school trip for 3 days, and now the part of the reason why we gave her the phone was for this particular trip, so that she would have a means of communicating with us while she was out of town on this trip, so she could send us text messages, she could call us if things weren't going well, any kind of problems, that sort of thing. And now instead she's just sort of left in the lurch. The phone literally did not do anything. So the only thing I can think of now is to just let it completely die, which when she went to bed last night, of course, like a responsible person, she left her phone plugged in to charge, so she would have a full charge this morning for the bus ride and everything else. So chances are, and it wasn't until this morning that she realized it wasn't working, so chances are that phone was 100% charged. So the only thing I can see now that will eventually force a reboot is when that battery dies and the phone can be rebooted. But that could literally, if there's nothing running on the phone, that could literally take a couple days of just that little blue light blinking on and off. It could be days before that thing discharges completely. So anyways, it got me to thinking again about just how dependent we are on these devices. And as parents, we're dependent too. Like, I don't want my kids to be dependent on these devices, but they are useful tools. They are very useful tools for communication, especially when you're going somewhere you haven't been before. It can be an unnerving experience. It's a little bit unnerving for me too. I've been looking forward to this, and I think it's going to be great. Give them a sense of independence. the kids really need this. I think post-COVID, we coddled them. We coddle them a lot as it is, and especially with COVID, it's not that we coddled them; it's that we isolated them. We didn't let them go out for so long. You know, for like a year and a half. It's like you can't go out anywhere. Don't go out anywhere. Don't breathe it in towards anybody. Don't even go to school for months at a time. We can just do online schooling. It'll be fine. You'll learn a lot of stuff on online schooling. So I think this trip is something that they really need to get that independence, but it's nice to sort of still have that link back to home, be able to make a phone call at least home or send a text message if things are, if things are not going well. If you're feeling a little homesick, you can talk to somebody from home. Great. And so to not have that, especially after we kind of put all this planning towards having that, go figure, the morning the phone failed is the morning when it was actually the morning it was supposed to be, it was needed. The previous several weeks of not having it, of having it, were just sort of the practice and get used to it, using it, and then it goes and fails. And what a frustrating experience. And for me, it just goes to show you that, like, the tech companies are designing phones that are just getting worse and worse, first of all. And the fact that you can't even remove the battery anymore. So you can't even do like a real battery pull like I used to do back in the day. Like every once in a while, if the phone would lock up, do a full-on battery pull. Pull the battery out, leave it out for 30 seconds, put it back in, and turn the phone on 100%. That will discharge the phone and force a hard reboot 100%. Oh, no, it's fine. We'll just make a special combination of buttons that'll force a hard reboot. What happens when the phone is not responsive to those particular buttons? It is possible the phone might be completely effed at this point, but I had about 5 to 10 minutes to try and figure out what was wrong with this phone before we had to leave and try a couple of resets. So I tried really quickly to search for the most basic resets, and I did try the original the basic hard resets, and nothing seemed to do anything, and then I ran out of time. But a battery pull, it's just such an easy thing to do. But of course, phone companies are not making it easier, and this is one of the biggest problems. And I actually read a really interesting piece about this. Kind of leads me into another interesting piece about one particular tech reporter who specializes in smart homes, who was lamenting the poor deal that consumers are getting on smart homes nowadays. Basically, the fact that most of the so-called smart devices, and I really have to use air quotes because smart is such a misused word nowadays. Connected to the internet does not automatically make a device smart, but manufacturers want you to believe that because they want to sell you these devices. But then they sell you these fancy devices that only work when they're connected to the internet, when they're connected to the company servers, and then the companies push updates that often change the functionality and often reduce the functionality after you've paid for the product. And then you're just thinking to yourself, like, why? What did I pay for? And that seems to be the general trend nowadays is sell a product with promising a lot of bells and whistles. And maybe this is not a new trend, but it definitely seems to be the tech companies especially are big cause of this. They sell these products that are going to be like, oh, this is the last thing you'll ever need. It'll just solve all your problems and make everything work so much better. And then you get it, and it works for a year, and then they push an update, and it bricks the thing, and then you spend all this time trying to fix it, and you find out that the functionality you were using is no longer allowed. Oh, well, most of our users don't use that, so you're not allowed to do that anymore. They're changing the terms of the deal after you've already shelled out your hard-earned money, and we're all so reliant on these companies. That's why, like, I have to say, like, one of the nicest things I bought recently was I recently bought a fan from a company called AC Infinity. Basically, it's just an inline vent fan for blowing additional hot air up into the cold bedrooms upstairs. A couple bedrooms are over the garage, and they're a lot colder than the rest of the bedrooms. So the whole purpose of this fan is just to boost the airflow, and it comes with a temperature sensor. So when the heat goes on, it senses the temperature in the vents that the heat is going up, and it turns the vent fan on to blow additional hot air up into those particular bedrooms. But what I really like about this fan, and what actually sold me on it in the beginning, was not the fact that it is Bluetooth functionality, because Bluetooth is another one of those, like, it, like so many technologies, it can be very useful, but it's also extremely easy to misuse. But this thing it's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth enabled. But the great thing is that if you choose to connect it to your device using Bluetooth, You don't need an account. You don't need a central server. It just connects directly within your home to that device, period. No central server, no nothing. And so if the internet goes down, guess what? The fan still works, and I can still change the settings on the fan and access all the information on it without having to set up an online account. So if you want to use it through the Wi-Fi, you do have to set up an online account. That kind of makes sense. Like you've got to sort of link it to your device somehow. But the idea that you don't need this account, that the account is optional. Thank God they had the foresight to do this. The account is optional. If you choose not to use the Wi-Fi connection, if you just choose to use the Bluetooth connection and just only access it locally, you don't need to have an account. What a brilliant... And it's sad because it's not such a brilliant idea, but the bar has been set so low by the tech companies. Oh, everything, you have to be connected to the internet 24/7. Well, what happens when my internet goes down? Oh, well, it won't work until it comes back up again. What if my internet's down for a week? Well, guess what? Your product doesn't work for a week. As all these people are finding out now with the Wi-Fi cameras that they have installed around their house, and like the proliferation of surveillance cameras on houses in our neighborhood, and I think that's probably true of most neighborhoods in the last five years or so, is just unbelievable. Every second or third house has got an outdoor camera watching the driveway or watching the front door or watching the street or something, between doorbell cameras and surveillance cameras and everything. But what people are finding out, of course, is that Wi-Fi is not great without a wired connection. All it takes is a guy with a nice powerful signal to jam your network connection, and that Wi-Fi camera is a useless brick. It sounds great in theory, and in the ideal world it's great, but yeah, criminals have figured this out. I mean, I'm amazed it took them as long as it did, or maybe it's just now becoming more common knowledge to criminals, but all you need is a cheap Wi-Fi jammer. You can buy one on Amazon, you can walk around from house to house, you can send out a signal, and all the Wi-Fi cameras stop working because they're not able to send the signal out over the Wi-Fi. So all of a sudden, all those smart cameras are not so smart anymore. But that was the premise that this guy wrote in this piece, was basically how consumers have been what's the best way to put it? Consumers have been sold a pile of snake oil for the most part with a lot of these smart home devices. They only work in such strict, specific use case scenarios, and if you don't fit their ideal model, chances are it's not going to probably do what you need to do. You have to be connected to the internet 24/7. You have to be connected to the company's servers 24/7. You have to have an account and be tracked by the company 24/7. And if the company ever goes out of business, then your product is just an expensive paperweight because it doesn't connect to anything but that company's particular servers. So, and so many of the so-called smart devices are set up this way now, where you have to use the company servers. You have to set up an account. Like I was reading about this. Like, I never actually got any smart light bulbs, but I was reading about how Philips Hues, for a long time, they would let you they would let you control your lights locally through their app without necessarily needing an account. Then starting about 6 months or a year ago, they said even if you want to control your things locally without using any benefit of our web service, connected directly through your local mesh network, you still need to have an account. You need to have an account with Philips to turn on your light bulbs. Like, that isn't like the ultimate demonstration of exactly how useless this technology can be. You have to have, and they forced an update on everybody, so it wasn't even possible for people to avoid this. You want to use this light bulb, you want to turn on that light bulb across the room, you have to set up an account with us. But I paid for the light bulb. Well, that's not good enough. Now we're going to expect you to pay $5 a month to use the light bulb. I wouldn't be surprised if they start pushing that on people eventually. That's the kind of world we're living in, and it's grown incredibly frustrating. So it's so refreshing when you can see a company that actually does create an actual real smart product that doesn't require an internet connection to be smart, because something that requires an internet connection to be smart is not actually a smart product. It's just a connected product. Alright, seems to have smoothed out for a little bit here, so I'm going to go ahead and put manage speed back on there. We'll see how this goes. Yeah, so many devices are not smart. They claim to be smart, but they're not, and it's very frustrating. And so, yeah, and this whole incident with the phone, with my own phone, with my daughter's phone, it sort of really kind of hammers home like how much we are dependent upon these devices, unfortunately, and all the connections that they make. And I am a bit of a hypocrite when I don't think I'm being a hypocrite. I think I'm being an optimist. Like, I realize that like these devices are useful, and of course here I am streaming on YouTube and using the internet, you know, as a platform. I realize that there is some irony and perhaps hypocrisy to me saying that we probably need less time with our devices. But just because I'm streaming now doesn't mean I'm going to spend the whole day with my devices. We definitely all need, I think, more time away from our devices, and that's the one thing I'm trying to seek. And I you know, when I broke my phone, it was a bit of a panic moment, and the biggest panic came because I knew I had to go to work. And of course, when I go to work, like, I'm gone for days. It's not like I go to work and I sit in an office and I have a landline I can make other phone calls from. You know, I'm gone to an unknown place for a couple of days, like not having a means for people to get a hold of me. That could be quite challenging. So I almost had that experiment that I proposed forced upon me, and it's sad, but like, in order for me to really be able to have a day without my phone, I would need to prepare for it, because you depend upon it. You do things with it without even thinking, and we've become so dependent on these devices. So I would love to do that experiment one day and try like a day or even 2 days without my phone. And like every once in a while I do it. When I go on vacation, I do it. I'll often put down my phone, and I won't, depending on the type of vacation, but certainly if we go on a cottage vacation, I just put my phone down. I don't look at it at all. Just enjoy the time at the cottage. Enjoy swimming in the lake and, you know, mucking around on the beach, going out for a paddle or a hike or whatever. But I tend not to bring my phone with me in those kind of cases. But a normal work day, it tends to be something you kind of come to depend upon. And one thing I have tried to do is I've tried to stop, and I will admit that I fail at this quite often, but I tried to stop looking at my phone every single time I don't have something to do for more than 5 seconds. Oh, well, I'll just put out my phone and just start doom scrolling for a little while, and everyone does it. It's crazy to see, and it's crazy how socially acceptable it is. You could be in the middle of a conversation with someone, and if there's a pause in the conversation of more than about 10 seconds, everybody just starts doing this on their phone. And so as an interesting little social experiment, I pulled my book out. And when the conversation lulled for 5 seconds, I went back to reading my book. And it's funny how... nobody really said anything, but it's funny how different that looks. It's so totally socially acceptable for you to have this device so close at hand that if the conversation lulls for more than 5 seconds, you can start looking at it and playing with this device. But if you hold a book out there or a magazine out there in front of you in the same position, ready to look at it when the conversation lulls for 5 seconds, you appear to be a very rude and inconsiderate person. But yet we all do it with our phones. And I think it's because we all have that sympathy for each other with our phones as well. We all are playing with our phones constantly. We all want to play with our phones constantly. Or maybe, you know, we all have the instinct to play with our phones constantly. I don't even necessarily know that I always want to, but it's almost become an instinct. You just reach for it, you just grab it, you just start playing with it and looking at it and doing whatever with it. And so I think we all kind of feel pity for each other. But when somebody does something else to engage their brain during a 5 second lull of conversation, they look rather rude. Like I said, like I had my book out there, and people kind of gave me like a strange look when I had my book out. I'm like, what if this was a phone? Would you think twice if this was a phone? What are you doing on your phone like that is so critical? Chances are most of the time you're doom scrolling anyways. You're just scrolling through Facebook and Instagram and whatever else, and you're not really doing things that are super important. What is the difference between reading a book and pulling out your phone in public? But it's weird how we completely, totally socially accept that. All right. I haven't done any position checks yet, so let's just do a quick one here. We are just passing by the fix of Kepler. I don't know if I actually have Kepler on my flight plan, but let's have a look in the nav log and see. Oh, I do have Kepler. There it is. Perfect. Kepler. All right, so we're just passing Kepler in 1 mile, which is pretty much now. All right, so time is 15:21, 10.7. Make it blue because it's nicer. So actual time over 15:21. Good. Anyways, and 10.7. So it looks like we're up on the gas by about 0.2 from the plan. And I don't know how that really compares. Looks like 42 minutes. Yeah, we've been in the air for 42 minutes. That's actually a pretty reasonable comparison. All right, so we'll work out a few more ETAs here. Just for future trending purposes, tracking purposes. 7. And I'll have to check and see if there's any ATC online yet, but I don't think there is. It's still early in the morning. I'm kind of hopeful that at some point there will be, but it wouldn't surprise me if we have another solid flight without ATC. And I contemplated doing an evening flight this week, but just the way things worked out. This month is a very hectic month in our lives, way more so than normal. Not only am I working more than normal, but we have a number of other activities, engagements throughout the month. Like I started looking over the month, and I'm like, this is definitely going to be the last stream for at least 2 weeks, maybe even 3 or 4 weeks, because it's just, there's so much going on in our lives this month. It's a bit of an unusual kind of concentration of stuff. And not that I mind or anything, it's just, but I was just looking at it and it's like, wow, this is going to be a busy entire month, and I may not even want to stream next week if I'm not, or not next week, but the week after, if I'm still feeling tired, like I need to recover from all this stuff that I've done. All right. 17-18 in Tampa. Let's just see how that compares. 17-18 in Tampa. Hi. All right, so our math adds up. It seems to be working out according to plan. We got, is that 120 knots on the nose now? Yeah, almost 120 knots on the nose. We're grounding 360, even though we're almost redlining it southbound here. Just not making fast progress today through the VATSIM skies, but that's all there is to it. It is, what can I say? It's a strong headwind working against us today. Yeah, if I can pull this back over again here, but yeah, this is the turbulence here. Where are we? There's Kerpler right there. So we are right there. So we've got to pass like the worst of the potential turbulence, but there is probably still a chance of some as we head southwestbound here. We may be better off climbing, but I think the reason why it kept us where we are is probably because of the winds. I bet if we go to 34, we get an even stronger headwind. So let's have a little look-see here. That's 32, so let's go to, that's 36, so let's go to 32, and actually, here's that's Guild. Here's Kerpler right here. See, we're actually right in the middle of one of these red zones, so we're actually not doing too bad. The turbulence is not too bad up here, so that's good. But yeah, like, look at these winds here at 32. If I go up to 34, just for sake of interest, yeah, the winds grow even stronger by about 10 knots or so. 10, 15 knots. So that's probably why it kept us down at 32. It's not the optimal altitude from a still wind perspective based on our weight, but just because of the headwind, I think that's why Lido kept us at 32, or Simbrief kept us at 32 the whole way. So be it. Yeah. So what else can we talk about? Let's have a look at a pilot's life here. So we're definitely underway now. It's definitely tracking us as we go southbound here. And there's another pilot's lifer there doing a Boston MCO run for Spirit Airlines. A couple of people on my friends list here. The greens are people on my friends list here. So Khaled with UPS is going from Louisville to Boston. Looks like he's kind of turning the wrong direction there. Maybe he's doing a hole or something. Got a couple more friends here. Mike and Cole, I'm pretty sure green is people who have friended me. San Antonio to Atlanta, and a couple other, or is blue people who are, I can't remember. No, blue is your airline. Blue is other people for your airline. And I've read something that I think that in the future they're actually going to introduce a forum where you can actually talk to the people who work at your airline in the Sinbit World Pilot Life here. So just curious to have a little look-see and see how popular, but JetBlue seems like a very popular airline. Let's have a quick look here, and let's just uncheck some of the other regions. That'll make it a lot easier to find JetBlue. I'm just curious. JetBlue Airways, 126 pilots work here out of 375 possible positions. That's a lot of people. Then you look at Jazz, 3 out of 132. Not a whole lot of people working at Jazz today. JSX has got nobody. Kalita has got nobody. Dragster, that's a good call sign. Kalita Charters, nobody working at Kalita Charters. Who's the most popular in terms of jobs? Can I sort by jobs? Oh, I can. Oh, nice. 256 people work for Delta, 263 people work for United, 283 people work for American. So the big three American airlines have, of course, got the most people working there. Lots of people working in Southwest, 266 people work for Southwest. But I mean, 5 stars usually means better pay. Quite a few people working for FedEx and UPS Cargo. SkyWest has got a lot of people because that's a very extensive CRJ operator. If you want to fly the CRJ around, or even the Dash, that's a very popular airline with a lot of potential flights. You see they can employ 585 pilots. Like, that means they've got a lot of routes to fly. So it's definitely a good regional airline to fly if you're looking at the entry level. If you can't get into the 5-star, look at the route network here. You can visit just about everywhere in the United States on SkyWest's route network here, I swear. It's mostly feeding into the airline hubs, but that's still that would definitely make for an interesting variety of flying. Let's see here. The first Canadian entry on here, Air Canada at 81 out of 255, which is still a fraction of the size of these American carriers when you start looking at it. Even Alaska's got a similar. JetBlue's got more people working there. Even some of the other. It's funny because SkyWest has got a lot of people working there. Republic with Brickyard, it's got almost nobody working there for the same star airline. Endeavour, 1 star, still people working there. It's just interesting to kind of compare and see who's working where. But yeah, supposedly JetBlue, or supposedly they're talking about having a forum now in a pilot's life where you can talk to the other people who work at your particular airline. You'll have access to this forum. Right now, the only kind of association you have with other people at your airline is you can see how you fare within your particular airline. So airline leaderboards. You can go and check this out. So you can go JetBlue Airways and you can see where do I fit here at JetBlue Airways. I'm pilot number 215. That being said, there's a whole lot of inactive pilots that haven't flown much lately. And I'm slowly building my way up the ranks. I'm 215 out of, what do we say? Wow, if you include all the inactive pilots, there's 611 pilots. But I imagine that, I guess, at a certain point, if you haven't flown in a pilot's life, then you kind of get purged from the list, from an active job list. And then, of course, got our top performers here. Our senior captain has done 245 flights for JetBlue, 346 hours logged, 21,000 experience points. I've done 1,100 experience points here at JetBlue. So if I can double my experience points to 2,200, that would put me up into, put me about to number 85. Not that I expect I'm going to anytime soon. I'd take another season or so. But interesting to kind of see how the stats kind of rain down. And then, of course, you've got the stats for the overall system. 842,000 registered flights over, what is this here? 1.6 million flight hours recorded on a pilot's life. Total number of pilots, 12,000. Number of connected pilots right now, 631, and 468 are flying right now. So that's a fair number of people flying around the world. If all those people are flying on VATSIM too, that'd make a fair number. I'd be pretty impressed. Here's the full current flights map. A lot of people in Europe, a fair number of people in North America, and then actually a fair number of people even in South America and through Asia. Like, there's quite a lot of people. The thing with a pilot's life, of course, is you're not tracking. You don't have to be constantly here. Like, your flight is tracking you as long as you're airborne and flying, but you don't have to be constantly in front of it like you are with VATSIM. The trouble with VATSIM, and it's not trouble, but like, people don't do like long flights on VATSIM often because they are not. They don't want to sit in front of the computer for that length of time and be talking to controllers for that length of time, which is fine, and I get it. Like, we all kind of want to do the same thing, so. Yeah, but interesting nevertheless to look at, pardon me, some of those stats, and you see the top people here, $304, almost $305,000, 320,000 experience points. Like, just an incredible amount of experience points. I don't think I have enough money to spend on anything else these days, do I? I've been slowly accumulating money. I haven't really been looking at the spending. My bank account's got $1,400 in it. It's not great, but it's something. I do have a few things in my inventory, so I get an extra 0.5% experience points with every flight, which is slowly pushing me up to 5,000 points, but it's going to be at least another 2 seasons, I think, before I achieve a rank up again. But that's okay, no big rush. I got a salary income credited last time, almost $200 for that long flight. So this one's probably going to be about 150 bucks, I would imagine. What else? What was I going to look at here? Yeah, nothing much I can buy in the shop at this point. I can try to buy some aircraft type ratings. What does a 777 type rating set you back now? $4 grand, huh? Because that 777's coming soon from PMDG, and that's one that definitely got my piqued my interest anyways. $4 grand for the 777 type rating though, so a little bit expensive to get into that. Would probably be totally worth it in the long run, but a little bit expensive at this point. I got to save my pennies. I've only got $1,400, and I'm only making $200 or less a flight. That's a lot of flights I still got to do to get to that. I should have spent some of my money on financial education and a bank deposit so that I can earn a little extra bonus money instead of bonus experience points. All the bonus experience points do is push you up to the next rank up sooner. That reminds me, the other kind of interesting question to always ask is, who's offering me a job, and is it worth anything more than what I'm getting right now? Air Nelson, Air Seychelles, and EasyJet Europe. $40, $41, $42. I think I'm making like $46 something an hour, aren't I? None of these people seem to be offering me something $52 an hour. I'm not taking a step back. If you want me to come work for you, you're going to have to offer me more, not less. All right, current contract. What does the current contract say? Is there a maximum amount of time you can go without flying? No, there is not. Steve McCroskey. This contract will follow the worry-free contract bonus setup rules. There's no bonus or penalty for this type of contract. Payments should be distributed weekly, full-time. Yeah, but see, I guess there must be a timeout for inactive users so that it doesn't clog the system with people who are not flying at all that are taking up spots at an airline. I don't even know what the timeout is. I'd be curious to find out. I would imagine it's going to be something very reasonable. You're looking at like 30, like not 30 days probably even. You're probably looking like at least 90 days of inactivity before they would consider purging you off a roster. 30 days is somewhat reasonable, but stuff happens in life, so definitely you wouldn't want like every single time someone for 30 days doesn't log on to kick them out. But once you start to get to the 3-month point, okay, now you're not interested in this at all. Now you're definitely not interested in this at all. So yeah, I wonder what the timeout is on that. Speaking of stats, the other stats that I love to look at every once in a while, and I haven't looked at them for a while, so let's go ahead and look at them, is of course Simbrief itself. Everyone's favorite flight planning software site, and if you go to the dashboard, I think you can view the stats somewhere. System status, that's where you can go view the stats. And I always, it blows me away. It makes me happy to see so many people enjoy this hobby though. Requests per second, 518 requests per second, 88 OFPs served every minute. That's more than 1 OFP every single second. If users currently using Simbrief, including me here, I'm one of these 1,536 download clients, 12,000 people. Yeah, that's not bad. It's still only weighing about 30% of the CPU usage. Disk usage, 2 terabytes of data. Always interesting to kind of look at this stuff though, like the flight planning statistics. OFPs since launch. So since August of 2013, so this is now almost 11 years, but they have generated 95 million flight plans. Like that is still like that's a mind-bending number. And I personally, I'm responsible for probably easily 1,000 or 2,000 of those. I often will file multiple flight plans before I finally kind of get everything, even for today. Like I generated the flight plan last night to make sure everything was kind of hunky-dory, but then this morning I reloaded it and regenerated again with the most current winds. So yeah, most of my flights, probably for the average flight, I've used 2 flight plans. Some I've used 4 or 5 because I'm trying to calculate different things. And that's one of those things that I think that's really kind of nice that they've done now, is they have this calculate and compare box now. So without having to generate all the paperwork of an actual flight plan, you can go and just see. So you can go and see what different options would do for you. So actually, let's go back and let's edit my flight. And just for sake of argument, if we were to select a hard altitude of 35 36,000 just to give it a little bit more of an extreme. And you do calculate and compare, and you'll very quickly be able to see how this compares. One error, passenger payload. So what's one error? Notice payload cargo limited by max takeoff weight. So 36,000 wind component there would be 82 knots, so 5 knots even more wind than we had planned on. It looks like it increased the time very slightly. It's 248. And I think we're at 245 or something on our actual current flight. 239. So yeah, you can see why it's kept us at 32. 36 would definitely be higher. And even if we did 34, let's do 34, just for sake of argument. And it will remember these, and it will show you your comparisons of current. So this is what this is what I just put in there right now. Is let's see here. This one is 340. Yeah, flight level 340. And this nets me a higher wind component by +1, 3 minutes and 18 seconds less, so 244 versus 248. But again, at 32, it's going to be 239. So I love this, though, the fact that they've added this compare and calculate and compare window, so you don't have to do the whole recalculate everything thing. You can quickly change some values and see how that impacts your flight without having to generate a whole flight plan. It really, I love it. Like, it shows you precisely, like, here's the actual values, but here's the comparisons. Red means something worse, green means something better. So we got better time. We would have burned an extra 122 kilos to do this. What a fantastic little system, though. And it even shows you, like, when you land, like, you would have landed with about an extra 76 kilos of fuel. Fantastic. Simple but easy. Yeah, so what a great system that this has become over the years. Like, I was a little skeptical when Navigraph took over. I was afraid that perhaps it would end up being they end up hiding part of it behind a paywall, but they very much want you to use it. Their whole thing is that if you're using it, hopefully you're paying for the subscriptions. That's what they're hoping for. And this just gives you sort of one more way to ensure the site stays open and makes your subscriptions worthwhile. OFPs in the past 24 hours, 77,000. OFPs in the past week, 630,000 OFPs in the last week. Almost a million, more than 500,000 OFPs in the last week. When you get the CTP data, that probably goes up close to 1 million. Yeah, it just blows you away when you look at this. In the last 24 hours, 77,000 people have filed flight plans. In the past 5 minutes, these are the flight plans that have been generated on Simbrief, which is just like, it's mind-blowing when you start to look at the scale of it. And I recommend it to anybody and everybody who's interested in this hobby at all. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. It's realistic. It gives you such realistic information. But it's so healthy to see that so many people are using the system and they're trying to fly as realistically as possible. Total users, 908,000. New users in the past 24 hours, 424. Just in the past 24 hours, 424 new accounts have been created. Online in the past, so 24 hours is not usually very indicative, but past week, because it's interesting to see the past week versus past month. But even then, it's interesting to compare these numbers. So in the past 24 hours, there's been 43,000 people. In the past week, there's been 113,000 people, so just triple the number. So it's a lot of repeat users. A lot of people are using it multiple times, either reusing it multiple times a day or only doing it a couple times a week. But nevertheless, and then you look at it from months or weeks, so it's not even double the number of users using it every month. They use it every week. So most people who use the system, they use it pretty regularly. They use it probably 3 times a week on average, 2 to 3 times a week, if not more. But even that, like 113,000 people. Like, I did not think that many people were interested in this hobby. I honestly didn't. The original couple of Navigraph surveys that came out, they got like 15,000, 20,000 responses, and I thought that was kind of a pretty indicative of the size of the hobby. Was 15,000, 20,000 people, simming at any point in time. But and maybe in the P3D era, that was certainly a perhaps more representative number. But since MSFS came out, and especially because it's usable on Xbox, I think just the number of people who have gotten into this hobby has just absolutely exploded. Because this is not necessarily all the people that are in a hobby, although most of the serious people are probably using this for flight planning. But 113,000 people, even if that was the whole hobby, that's a big hobby. If PMDG was able to sell to you know, half of those people, 50, 60,000 people at you know, easily $50 a pop, even just to keep the math easy. Say 50,000 at $50 a pop would be 50,000, $2.5 million easily. But that's me rounding down to $50, which most of the PMDG projects are a little bit more than that. And maybe not half of these people will have used, but definitely PMDG will get a good number of people. Interesting story. I was into FS9 at university, took a long break up, back into it after XP11, and now MSFS, Simbrief, and Navigraph really impressed me. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like the amount of technology you have available to you now. Like, you're not like, you used to have to like pull out paper charts and keep paper charts of the airports you wanted to go to and find them somewhere. I used to have a whole pile of them, and they're probably actually still somewhere around my office, because I used to basically kind of have to manage our airplane, so I'd have to print off all the charts for all of our flights, and make sure that we had current charts for all of our flights. But I didn't have access to a tablet or an EFB at the time. This was 15 years ago. We didn't have an EFB in the aircraft or anything, so I would print off all the paper charts I could conceive myself needing, the origin, the destination, and then any alternates I might conceive of needing, and bring them all with me. You know, or maybe you had an instrument approach plate book from an employer. Like if you didn't have that though, like you could go and buy one and I guess carry around and have a used one. But certainly the worldwide access, I think value for dollar, Navigraph, like fantastic. All your worldwide charts, so you don't have to go out and buy the individual charts of all the countries you want to visit like you used to have to do back in the day. Everything is available digitally, and they just keep on improving it. You know, like. This is super neat. It's a little tiny bit laggy within the sim. I think it's a little bit better outside the sim, but nevertheless, just one more great piece of technology. Hey, what's your taxi route? Alpha 12 Victor Bravo. Fantastic. Done. You know, you can jot these things down. You can make notes if the minimums have changed on your approach or whatever, or if a particular you know, restriction no longer applies, or maybe there's a new restriction in there. You know. You can write stuff down. Okay, it's terrible for writing stuff down, but that's the worst 10,000 ever. But you get the point, though. Like, and I think it is a little bit laggy within the sim itself. I think the other apps do a little bit better job. But just the fact that you can kind of circle stuff and highlight stuff, even just a basic stuff, just a nifty little invention. The only thing that's missing from Navigraph right now, and I feel like it's only a matter of time before it gets implemented, is something that Jepson does called the AMM, which is the what does AMM stand for now? I can't even remember what AMM stands for. But basically what it is instead of having this replica of a printed chart, so this is all still set up like a printed chart, what the AMM is an actual kind of digital representation of all the taxiways and runways and gates around an airport on a zoomable map. But it's got taxiway center lines in there. It's got hold points all marked on there, and of course it's on your EFB, so it's fully available as a you know, 3D flight tracker. So your GPS coordinates go on there. If I can just bring it up here, there we go. Let me see here. So let me just bring up Tampa, for example. Yeah. So it's kind of a little bit hard to tell, but hopefully I can sort of see what's going on this tablet here. No, it's terrible. What if I turn this down for a second? Even that is really hard to see anything at all. Okay, if I hold it at a bit of an angle so it's not reflecting the light so much, but if you can zoom right in on some of these things here, like you can see, it's really hard to see, but there's actually the taxiways and taxi lines are all marked on here. The gates are all marked on here. You can even tap on a gate and say, this is my destination gate. And it even highlights the gate. If I can do it here. Come on. It'll even highlight the gate for you, so you can see what gate you're going to, so you get a really visual sense of it. Every gate's marked on there. The lead-in lines for each gate are marked. The taxiway center lines, hold short lines, like everything is marked in so much more detail than would be on a typical taxi chart. The idea being you follow this thing in 3D in real time with the GPS on your device. It's not certified as like this is a low visibility. This is you can taxi just using this. in the sense that like you don't look outside, but it's so great for the positional awareness. You can see your little own ship moving across the chart, and you can have a good sense of where you are in the airport. You also see the individual center lines, so you know you can kind of see how the intersections are configured and hopefully follow the correct line. It gives you a little bit of a leg up in that direction. So I don't know if Jeppson's going to let Navigraph have that data, or you know what they would charge them for that data, but that would be the next generation. And we've seen things like that in the past where oftentimes what we'll do is we'll load the sim data and and where the center lines are in the sim and all that stuff. You'll see that on the moving maps of some of these aircraft. It's very much in that style. Whether or not Jeppson goes for that, I don't know, but that's one of the last things that's not really done. Otherwise, almost everything else, now that we have the markups as well, markups are such a nice little thing. I don't think it's an option, but the other thing that also is a nice option, I don't think it's an option, is it? No, I don't think it's an option. But what was I about to say here? I've already lost my train of thought here. But the one other thing that's kind of missing from the Jeppson charts is the ability to filter out airports. So if you go, not here, but if you go to, let's say you're just looking at this, what you can do on a company specified device is oftentimes the company will specify what airports are company airports, and it'll only show you the company airports. So here I can see a whole slew of airports. It would only show you the airports that are approved company airports, and the rest are still in the database, and you can choose to turn them on and off. But our, Jeppson, we choose to only have Jeppson show us the airports that are company airports normally, because those are the ones that the company would like us to land at. If we have to divert somewhere, pull up your Jeppson app really quickly and look at what airports are nearby. The ones that appear on there are the ones that are company approved. If you have to land somewhere else, you can. But this is, of course, company approved, company evaluated. They know that you can get this aircraft in and out of there. The other thing that even goes in with that now, and something that's also been recently added to Jeppson is, especially to the AMM, is wingspan restrictions. If I can find it here. Where'd it go? 1 second. So let's see if I can find an airport that has some wingspan restrictions. Nope. Well, even this one. So even if you take Toronto, and you take your specific aircraft type, and I don't know how well you can see this here, but you can kind of see it there if I kind of angle it a little bit. Anyways, you can see how this one particular end of the taxi lane here is red, which indicates, of course, red is bad. That means that taxiway, that particular section of the taxiway, is not allowed for aircraft of our particular wingspan. So my device is, of course, configured for our aircraft's wingspan, and anything that's over the limit will show up as red. So there's so much neat stuff you can do. I don't think Jeppson has finished, not Jeppson, Navigraph has finished anyways. All right, let's just do a little check here at D's just to see that we are still on schedule here. So 1550 and 9.3. Wow, we're falling behind here. 9.3, so we're okay on fuel. We're right where we need to be on fuel, and 3 minutes behind, so we did have the speed pulled back. Now, that being said, D's did pass a minute ago, so let me actually recheck this here. 1550, no. It did pass D's at 1550 with 9.3 in the tank, so it was just a little bit behind us. We are falling a little bit behind. I'm guessing that the headwind is probably stronger than forecast. Hopefully that's not going to impact our arrival too much. We're showing 1551. We got about an hour and a half still to go to Florida here at the rate we're going. We're going to be over the block. What was the scheduled arrival time? So it was on my screen, on my stream schedule. Oh, look, we got Tampa controller. Hopefully he sticks around long enough. we're far enough along that they might still be there when we get there. That would be nice. Have a little ATC. And it's a terminal controller, so we'll get a vector to final and everything. Let me see here. So I didn't write it down. I did put it in my stream schedule that the scheduled arrival time into Tampa is 17:17. So we're showing landing at 17:19. By the time we get around to the gate, it's going to be about 17:24, 17:25. So we're about 5-6 minutes behind schedule. If we had left on time, we probably would have an on-time arrival. Not much you can do about it, and I'm not going to sweat it. That's the way the business is, and we just carry on. What else can I talk about, though? I feel like I've already killed most of the topics. I didn't have all that much to come up with this week. I spent a lot of time at work the last week or so, and so I feel like I was not home very much. So I'm just trying to sort of think about. I didn't see a whole lot of other interesting news out there in the sim world. Let me just quickly doom scroll my phone and see if there's anything anything interesting going on there in the sim world. Any interesting news, maybe even published today. Let me just see here. One thing that I thought was a little bit odd is how many manufacturers, developers suddenly came out with a Airbus FCU in very short order. We went from like having like maybe one like expensive one on the market to like within about a 6-month period having like 4 different things on the market. Like you know, depending on your price point, different price points, but when it rains, it pours. Like we went from having almost nothing, and I have to say, like my MiniFCU, I really love this thing. It's nice, it's compact, it's small enough that it really does not take up much space on my desk. When I get the Mini ECam, and I will get the Mini ECam because that's the other thing that's missing. It's the Mini ECam is this section right here, and if I can get that section too, then that would just to me would just finish off the whole thing nicely. And it's funny because the one company they do sell. So the other company, they sell the FCU left, center, and right. And of course, you can see the kind of the delineation. The center part is the autopilot. The left side is the EFIS for the captain. The right side is EFIS for the first officer. Someone made the point in the comments. It's like, why would you buy this side? And unless you're really like creating like a 100% realistic 2-pilot replica of the A320 flight deck, I have to kind of agree with them. I would not manufacture a whole lot of this side because the functionality is exactly the same. It's just a question of controlling the screens on either side. But if, as most simmers do, fly single pilot, there seems to be very little point. That's kind of like what MiniCockpit is doing. So they're going to have the MiniFCU, which is the part I have, which is the autopilot controls. They're going to have the Mini ECam, which is basically this, almost perfectly replicated, 100%. But then on the other side, they're going to change it up quite differently, and they're going to have the system display buttons up here on this ECam, which to me I kind of looked at it and said that's weird because these really do belong down here, not up here. But at the same time, I get it. There's no point in having these controls replicated on this side because chances are you're never going to touch these things. This thing will gather so much dust and you'll flip them once in your lifetime, unless you invite someone over to play as your FO for a little while. So I get that. I kind of understand like the idea of putting some different buttons on there, and so that's one thing they did do as well. I think it was at not FS Expo, but what was the show called that they just did in Europe? I can't think. It's not Flight Sim Expo. I can't think what the show was called. But anyways, at the show, they FS Weekend. That's what it's called, FS Weekend. But MiniFCU announced kind of their future plans, their 2024-2025 roadmap, and it actually is quite extensive. They are looking to grow pretty quickly into a whole bunch of different cockpit hardware. The interesting thing about them is that they're taking a very pragmatic approach to it, in that they're not trying to replicate the Airbus flight deck, switch for switch, because a lot of this stuff does not get used very often. So they talked about a number of different things. So the Mini EFIS, I think, is the next thing that's going to come to market here. And it's basically it's just those EFIS switches. It even includes the chrono button, which is kind of nice. That's not really part of directly of the EFIS. It's kind of, the EFIS kind of ends right here, so this is not really considered part of the EFIS, but it's smart. I think it's smart that they have the chrono button on there. That's one that gets used a lot, and that's the key, is like these are things that get used a lot, and that's why I want the mini EFIS. That's why I think the mini EFIS is such a useful tool, is because these are switches that especially the range switch you use a lot, the altimeter setting switch you use a lot. Certainly the flight director, localizer buttons, throwing the constraints, throwing into plan mode, these things, especially the range button, the altimeter button, those are things you use a lot. The chronos one you use a lot as well. So having those up here on a tactile system, very smart. This is actually kind of a change from what they'd originally planned. So they've changed the mini ECAM a little bit. I think the idea is still you could mount it on the right side, because it's got the master caution and master warning lights, but then it's also got all the ECAM buttons, the takeoff config, even the emergency cancel button, all those somewhere. You can put it in a more realistic spot. It's a bit of a weird combination to have these, but I kind of get that they're sort of combining things so that you're not always mouse clicking, because that's probably one of the biggest things with this hobby, is that 95% of it is mouse clicking. You're mouse clicking everything under the sun to try and interact with your flight deck. So I love having this thing. I really, really do. Like being able to interact with the autopilot and the FCUs, some of the most commonly used controls, being able to do those actions, and especially on the FCU where you've got the push-pull actions, and those are really hard to do in the sim. There's very small little click spots for the push-pull actions. So being able to actually push-pull all of my switches on my mini FCU is just, it's an absolute dream in terms of controlling the sim, in terms of trying to be a little bit realistic. This thing, again, combining these two things, they're very useful functions separately. The fact that they're in very different spots in the flight deck, I don't know if this is something that would appeal to me. I might not want to use these and just use these, because it's so weird to have this. You're either going to have the ECAM switches are going to be up here in front of you on the FCU, which is the wrong spot, or the caution and warning lights are going to be way down here if the ECAM's in the right spot. So it's an odd combination. I get it. I really do. And then mini RMP, that's a nifty one as well. This combines, again, two panels in the real flight deck. So let's have a look down here at the real radio management panel, and it kind of combines two panels. So your tuning frequency, which in this case you're not going to tune it, it's going to be a little numbers dial tuner, but then you've also got your transponder buttons right here, your TCAS buttons, so it's kind of combining your radio panel and your transponder panel all into one. So it's not a faithful replica, but again, the useful functions kind of get replicated, and I do have to say that I kind of like this as well, and I think this might also be a very useful combination. Definitely that one. Yes, they're not quite in the same spot, but they are both kind of down here, and especially if you're looking at the first officer side. The number 2 radio and his number 2 and the transponder are in the same general vicinity. The transponder's below the radio. Yes, they're not quite far apart, but definitely you're kind of in the right ballpark with that. I would very highly think about this as well. I think this could be a very useful tool. And then they're also talking about mini overhead, which is, again, this is a very non-accurate replica of what's going on the overhead panel, but I think what they really did kind of look at, and what they tried to do, was they tried to say, what are the most commonly used switches on the overhead panel? Let's replicate those. And so that's what you've got here. You've got, okay, the wiper, I mean, in the sim, it's worthless. And even on the real airplane, in all honesty, sometimes it's worthless. Landing flap 3, but wing anti-ice and engine anti-ice, yeah, very useful. APU bleed, master switch start, and external power, super. These ones, every flight. Seatbelt switch, yeah, every flight pretty much. Call the flight director, yeah, okay. The light switches themselves, the strobe, the beacon, the nav lights, the runway turn-off lights, the landing lights. So we're missing one set of switches in here. So we're missing the wing ice light, and we're missing a second set of landing lights. Right, we have 4 switches on each row up here. We have the wing light, we have 2 landing lights, so we've combined them into one, which is fine. Like, to me, that's fine. Like, that I think is fine. Like, it's not 100% realistic, But if you were to mount it up here, everything that you kind of need on the overhead panel, these are definitely the most commonly used switches. Terrain on ND is not on the overhead panel. That's the only one that's a little bit weird. And weather radar. Those two are a little bit weird. And notice how they're kind of sectioned off there. Those are actually on the pedestal. Well, that's on the main panel and the pedestal, so they're in a bit of an odd location. But I kind of see where they're coming from, and there's a lot of logic to this, especially these buttons right here, the lights. These are things that are used every single flight. These are switches that are used a lot. Like 90% of the time when I reach up to the overhead panel, I'm doing one of those switches. Other than the initial setup, let me just think here. Other than the initial setup, the only switches I really activate outside the initial setup, and actually now I'm thinking about it, our center fuel tank is empty. It's as empty as it's getting, I think. Because we definitely used all the fuel out of there. It's not feeding anymore anyways, so we'll go ahead and turn off the center tank pumps. But yeah, on the overhead panel, they've pretty much captured it. The buttons that get used every single flight, APU, light switches, seat belts, yeah, that's about it. Potentially wing and engine anti-ice. Easy there, girl. Easy. Put the seatbelt sign back on. The only other ones I might say you use fairly commonly on a flight potentially are the packs. Turn the packs off for takeoff, turn them back on after takeoff. Those might be the only other ones that you end up using a lot. But yeah, they have captured on one probably relatively small panel. It's probably like going to be about 6 inches by 8 inches or something like that. Like not a big panel, like a postcard sized panel. They have captured like the majority of switches that you use on a daily basis in flying the airplane. So like what a fantastic product lineup, I have to say. Like that, and this is a change. Like the original Mini ECAM was supposed to be kind of supposed to go to the right of your FCU and be kind of the opposite of the Mini EFIS, and so you have a Mini EFIS on the left side and a Mini ECAM on the right side. And it looks like, judging by the size, I think they've designed it so that you could put it there on the other side and it would be in the right spot, but you could also opt to put it down low and have it be in the right spot down below. So would that be interesting? Yeah. Do I press into those buttons enough? Probably not. If I had to pick a priority order, it would be a hard toss-up between the Mini EFIS and the Mini RMP. I think Mini EFIS is even more useful than Mini RMP. But Mini RMP is definitely high on the list. Mini Overhead, great, but the fact that it's not a very realistic layout kind of would take it away a bit for me. Would take a little bit away from it. So I don't think they gave any kind of price guidance on anything yet. I never even noticed this, but MiniFCU. Oh, I never even noticed this at the end of the story. MiniFCU is compatible with Fenix. I'll have to remember to download that after this flight. Anywho, I did not notice that was that the software was updated. Anyways, yeah. So no prices or anything, and I don't think there's any kind of guidance particular on. No, they just sort of showed you here's what we're planning, but it's not. There's no specific timelines on anything, and I wouldn't want to necessarily give timelines. It's still it strikes me as a very small company outsourcing manufacturing to a manufacturing company, but a very small design team working on these products. But definitely they have that casual simmer in mind. So not someone who needs to build a one-to-one replica of the Airbus A320 in their home, but would like to stop flying with a mouse. Stop flying your airplane with a mouse is what it says on the side of the box as I look up there still. And that to me is one of the biggest things you can do to really kind of improve your immersion, is if you can get the most common switches you use. And so I see their strategy, and their strategy, even the overhead panel, is really good. They really covered off the most common buttons you're going to use on the overhead panel. They're not laid out in a realistic manner. It's a compromise, I mean, I've seen what the real things cost. Like if you want to buy a full A320 overhead panel for your sim, you can buy it. I think it's like $11,000 but you can buy it. Whereas probably for about $200 you can get the small panel that covers up like the 10 most commonly used buttons on the overhead panel. I see the market they're going for. I think they got a great business plan. I certainly hope the quality keeps up. I know they had a few issues with the initial release, but even then they said, like, when you looked at the number that they sold, 5,000, and they had like 12 issues. There was a product failure rate of like 0.05%, which is very typical on any kind of technological product. You're going to have a few that don't pass muster, that weren't quite put together perfectly well. I believe that they did replace all the units that they did find were malfunctioning. They did contact those people and find out. Okay, so just one thing I'm noticing here as we head southbound, as we're heading southbound, the temperature's getting warmer. We're now up to actually minus 40, which requires us to put the engine anti-ice back on in the visible moisture because the air is slowly getting warmer, which means there's more and more potential for moisture in there. So the limitation is below minus 40. We can turn off the anti-ice if we're in climber cruise. But because the temperature's risen to minus 40 outside air temperature, we have to put it back on. So be it. All right, hopefully this is going to keep going here. Just trying to think about what else. But yeah, that was, I think MiniFCU is definitely, MiniCockpit definitely has a good potential future. I just hope they don't fall into the Honeycomb trap. Did I even talk about the Honeycomb trap? Did we even talk? We must have talked about this on stream because this was a good month or two ago. And I read the whole thing and just what a debacle. And I have to say, like, I feel so bad for the designer of the Honeycomb products there, and I can't think of his name, but the gentleman who kind of founded the company, who worked at Logitech for years and said, we could go a little more upscale. And the guys at Logitech said, nah, it's fine. Sell the Simmers cheap stuff. They don't care. And the guy's like, no, we could do a little bit better. And that I think Honeycomb really hits that sweet spot. It's not the cheapest. It's about, whatever, 40%, 50% more than the cheapest, which is not a big step up. It's another $100 or so for their product, but their product is just worlds better in terms of being flexible. They really came at it as Simmers and said, what do Simmers really want to see? And I couldn't believe when I opened it up and I said, oh my God, it includes a set of airline throttles. You could have GA throttles on there, or you could swap out. You've got a speed brake lever, flap lever. You've got airline style throttles. I swapped those out day one. I was like, oh my God, these are fantastic. And the reverser buttons, reverser levers that work. Like, oh, what a wonderful, well-designed product. And again, like Honeycomb, it doesn't perfectly fit any one airplane because it really is trying to be a jack of all trades. The Honeycomb Bravo specifically is really trying to be the jack of all trades. So you can fly it as a GA airplane, you can fly it as a jet. It's got gear and flaps, levers, it's got switches and lights and everything. You can have reverse thrust and go around buttons and all that stuff. There's so much stuff on there, and they just they looked at it and said, how can we make this as flexible as possible? Seemed to be what they were doing it. And I have to just say, like, just what a great job. And it's going to be such a shame if that company sort of falls by the wayside now. And I don't know if it will, but it one way or another, it seems like it's probably going to fall by the wayside. Either they're going to come to some kind of an agreement, the founder and the manufacturer, the two partners are going to come to some kind of agreement, or they're not. And it sounds like the manufacturer kind of has all the cards. He played a shrewd business game. Unfortunately, took advantage of someone who was an engineer by trade, was not so much onto the finance side of things, and it sounds like he took advantage of that fact. I saw that this guy was not going to be paying close attention to the books, so he could do stuff with the books that was questionable at best. And as a result now, of course, the original kind of founder, the guy who kind of created the company and designed the products, has sort of found himself, he's dealt out of the deck. He's no longer a part of the active development process. So it's very possible that Honeycomb, that the finance partner will keep the kind of entity going. But I feel like without the designer, it's not going to be, what I'm trying to say here. The development process is probably going to die. They may continue to manufacture and sell the existing product line, but and make money off it, but the development process will die. But the unfortunate thing is that, like, when you make money off the existing product line, you can reinvest that into development. And so if you know, the guy who did most of the technological end of the development is no longer working there, then who's going to be designing the new product? Who's going to be taking that money, investing it into let's design new products? Because they had a whole list at like Flight Sim Expo last year. There was a whole whack of stuff that they wanted to make. They wanted to make you know, like a little digital screen that you could use as like a PFD or an ND or even like a you know, G1000 GPS screen. They had that. They had a whole bunch of stuff that they were kind of like thinking about in the long term. Is like, what can we do to what other products do simmers want to see out there? And it seems like yeah, that's probably not going to happen if he's not involved in the company anymore. So it's unfortunate, but I guess that's sometimes the way the cookie crumbles. I can see we have a company message here on our ATSU, so maybe this is now requesting a delay coding. Oops. Yeah, now they want a delay code. Now they figured out that we left late. Alright. So now they figured out that we're late by 8 minutes. They want a delay code. And ATC delays, ground equipment operational delays. At the end of the day, it was mostly, I'm just going to say other aircrew time required for MEL review. So we'll go ahead and go data, AOC functions, airline operations functions. Alright, so let's go ahead and go ATSU, airline operations, AOC delay, and we'll just say OTH for the full 8 minutes of delay. Flight crew review of boo. MEL. Send. That's all we need. What we really need is if we can get the ATIS through this system. I'm pretty sure we cannot unless I've never actually had a chance to really use this with the hobby system. One day I'd love to try it. ATC menu reports. Manual position report now. So there's no way. It would be really great if we could get like VATSIM ATIS through this system as well. That would be really neat. But no. It would usually be a sub part of the AOC menu. You'd have like ATIS request or something, but no. Unless it's down under weather, but I don't think it is. Weather request. I could try this anyways. KTPA. Request the METAR. And the TAF. Send. Let's see what I get back in a second here. That was one thing that would be really nice to have, would be a company message. That was pretty quick. Would be to grab these ATISs through. Alright, so JetBlue Ops, message received. There we go, thank you. Weather data. Alright, so Tampa, looking pretty nice here. 210, 21 gusting 33. It's a little bit gusty. Out of the southwest, 10 miles, broken 1800, overcast 2400, 27 degrees, 2978 peak wind of 200 at 33 knots. And the TAF, let's see here. So just doing one line at a time here. Yeah, +6. Broken 2000, so where's we've got wind shear 230 at 20. And then from 1700, we've got 6 miles in rain showers, thunderstorms in the vicinity, scattered 1,000 from 2,000 CBs. And a tempo from 18, so hopefully we're on the ground by 17. Tempo of 18 of thunderstorms, heavy rain, 2 miles in overcast, or broken 1,000. Hopefully we'll be okay before that. Alright, hopefully that's okay. Alright, anywho. Yeah, so let's see here. We've got probably just over an hour till we land. So let's start setting up here really quickly. It's a little bit far out, but I can go back and do it this way. But it sounds like it's going to be 19s. Oh, and the ATC logged off anyways. Boo. 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 Okay, well, I guess we're going to go to the real world ATIS then. If I can find what I did with it here. I put it somewhere, but I don't know where. I had too many windows open, I think is my problem. There it is. Okay, real world ATIS. Let's just have a quick look here. There's Tampa. Alright, let's go with arrival ATIS for Tampa's information. Delta, 210-21 gusting 33, as we got from 10 miles, broken 800. 2978, so I can probably set that now, just to get that out of the way. 2978, that's good. And let's see here.
2992 set, passing 1,900 now.
Wow, you are totally out of sync with everything, buddy. There goes somebody on VATSIM. Bye, somebody. Somebody flying over my head going the other way. Let's see here. 19 left, 1 right closed. Got some taxiway closures as well. If I pull up the, let's do this. Let's pull up the Navigraph charts. But Romeo 2-3, Romeo Foxtrot. So it sounds like, let's just check it out here. So 19 left is closed, Romeo. So Romeo is the ramp here. So large portions of the ramp here are closed. That's not going to affect us at all. Echo 1 restricted to wingspan is less than 118 feet. That's okay. The Airbus we score. V2 and Victor between V2 and V3. 171 feet or less. That's fine. All these restrictions really don't impact us. Foxtrot South and Fox 1 closed. That's fine. Whiskey South. And what does this mean here? Whiskey South of Whiskey 3. Whiskey and Victor north of Alpha. What does that mean? Does it mean they're closed? Does it mean they're open? Does it mean they're... You gotta be specific, buddy. Oh my gosh. Something missing there. So what we can do is let's just check the NOTAMs as well for the arrival process. So let me just go to the NOTAMs here. Maybe the NOTAMs will tell me what they're actually supposed to say here. So for Tampa, NOTAMs. Okay, stop making stuff right now. Alpha between Charlie and Victor closed. Okay, 118 wingspan. None of these wingspan restrictions affect us. 19 left closed, 1028 closed. 19 right is all we got for arrivals. Let's see if we got anything for affecting 19 right. Cat 2, NA, that's fine. Not expecting Cat 2 minimums anyways. 19 right, anything else for 19 right? ILS 19 right, circling categories. We're not going to circle. Alright. I don't see anything too untowards on there, so let's do a quick landing distance calculation on 19 right here. And actually, let me just do this quickly first, because it usually defaults to not full brightness, but I want full brightness. Makes it a little bit easier for you guys to see what we're doing here. That's better. Alright. Landing performance. Tampa. 19 right. I'm going to say wet runway because they are saying potential of some METAR or some showers in there. Let's apply that METAR. Landing weight, that's the only thing I did not do. So the easiest thing is to do field prediction page and add it up. 60.8 plus, so that's going to be 66.8. That might put us a little bit overweight for landing. In fact, I'm sure that'll put us overweight for landing. 5.8, 60.8. Oh, suddenly got, oh. See, I know what the aircraft numbers are. Max landing weight 64,500. We're not going to burn that much fuel. We're going to be over on the fuel by a fair bit here at the rate we're going. Like we need to burn, like we need to be 64.5, which means we need to have fuel like at less than 4 tons. And we're projecting 5.8. So, as annoying as it is, we'll start increasing our fuel burn. Okay, so yeah. We'll have to do 64.5 numbers. Didn't realize we were so close on the landing weight. So if I do, I'm going to round it up to 65, which is overweight for landing. Low auto brake, idle reverse, manual landing, and flap full auto thrust on. It gives us an LDA of 11,000 feet available, 7,000 feet. So we should be trying to burn more gas though. So the other thing we can do, and it's very annoying, is we can start moving the speed brakes out. And that'll force us to consume more gas. Work against the speed brakes. Unfortunately, that's very uncomfortable for everybody. So, the other thing we can do, because we have to burn about an extra almost 2 tons of fuel, which is going to be almost impossible. The other thing we can do is descend, which will increase our fuel burn, and I think that's what we're going to have to do. I think it's the only thing we can do that's going to give us the fuel burn we need. I can't believe my flight plan didn't really catch this here. Planned landing weight 66 tons. Oh, see, Simbrief is predicated on 66 tons. In which case, we're still overweight, but not by much, 0.4. So I want to get it under 66 tons, which means I need the expected fuel in 90 to be less than 5.2. So I think what we'll do is we'll request ATC a descent, and we'll see if this doesn't also increase our fuel burn here. What am I doing here? Alright, so we got 30,000 feet set. Mach VS minus 1,000, all blue. Speed brake still out, thank you. It is going to be intentionally out for the time being. We're trying to increase drag and increase our fuel burn in hopes of burning a little bit more gas. We might even have to go down quite substantially early here just to burn the gas we need. 5.8, we need to burn 0.6 extra. If our landing weight is 66 tons, and I swear I changed that, but I must not have used the right aircraft in the Simbrief profile, because I changed the Simbrief profile to have the 64,500 takeoff, but I must not, or landing weight. But I must not have kept that change. Okay, so we're going to try and eke ourselves down a little bit here. If I go in here and change the perf, and it should have changed it automatically to cruise at 30 instead of 32. Let's go ahead and see how that affects the fuel prediction. Now that takes that takes 100 out. What if we go down to 28? I don't normally like to cruise this low, and it's going to kind of slow us down a little bit, but we need to increase fuel consumption substantially. Alright, so we're going to go 28. 5.28. How does that help our fuel here? 5.6. What if we were to do 26? Alright, let's try 260. Hopefully this is gonna start to make a difference here. Between this and the extra drag, for the fact we have the speed brakes out. Let's try one more. Let's try 260. See if this can give us more than 100 kilos difference. Still only 100 kilos difference. I should have been more on top of this. Alright, so we'll leave the speed brake out. It's unfortunate because the trouble with that is it makes for an uncomfortable ride. The whole airplane kind of just, it makes it feel like it's a little bit choppy the whole time. You can see those speed brakes sitting out there. That's all they do, is they just come out that far, just enough to just give it some extra drag, ruin some of the lift on the wing, and the airplane has to compensate for it. So we got quite a bit of power going on even in the descent. It's basically doing full power to try and keep the speed up in the descent. So this might actually work out with this and a little bit of extra speed brake. So we'll descend to 26. We do have the engine anti-ice on for the descent. It is going to be quite a bit warmer up here. Maybe this will get us out of the winds too here. That may actually work against me a little bit if I get out of the winds too much. And I think that's what's working against me. I think the descent should be making a bigger difference than it is, but because of the fact that we are that the winds are decreasing, the fuel burn is increasing, but the winds are also decreasing to get us there faster, so it's not having as much of an impact as I would have thought to go down low. 5.4, that's better. That's definitely better. So we'll keep the speed brakes out for a while. We may have to do early flaps in gear and just keep an eye on this. So that's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. Otherwise, we'll get set up, and I'm just going to need a little bathroom break here for a moment. So I think I'm just going to step out. No, I'm not going to step out right now because I want to see it level off first. But once it's leveled off, I'll step out. We'll just use the facilities for a moment. That coffee's gone right through me. I might refill my coffee cup, and I'll be right back in like 5 minutes. So we'll just let's see what am I trying to do. I'm trying to find Tampa approaches for 19 right. ILS or low 19 right is what we're going to plan here. Alright, so let's hide this. Alright, so let's plan on all of this. Let's move this over. So these are the things we're going to need here. And I did get a gate. That was Alpha 10, I believe, for this arrival. Alright, so we are descending to 260 to try and burn some extra gas. 5.5, we need to burn about an extra 300 kilos still. So the fact that I am riding the speed brakes with almost full power against the speed brakes to try and keep speed, it is increasing our drag, and I've also started the APU to also increase our fuel burn. It's not much, but the APU should give me at least another 100 kilos burn before we get to Tampa in 45 minutes. Well, I feel like a bit of a fool, but sometimes this actually does happen, and usually this is one of those things that I do look for in flight plans. When I'm doing simming, though, I often speed through the flight plans, but this is one of those things that you do look for on a flight plan, is you do look at the comparison of the landing weight, your max versus your estimate. If these are even close, then you start to say, okay, we have to watch that right from the get-go. We've got to watch that. We can't go up in weight, or else we might exceed our landing weight. If we don't burn as much fuel as planned, we might exceed our max landing weight. And even if, and it even shows you, like, the takeoff weight, 73.8, was limited because of our landing weight, so we have to make sure we're under that weight for landing. So now we've got to really work to make sure that we get the weights down there. Alright, so we're just passing a waypoint right now as we level off here at 260. Let's see here. So this is waypoint just past Suzo. Alright, let's do a check here. So at 1630, what happened to all my oh, that was because I'm further down. Suzo 1630 with 7.2 in the tanks. So we're going to be specifically trying to burn more fuel. Wow, 1630. We are falling behind here. And we do have less fuel in the tank. So the trend is in the right direction, actually. The The minimum fuel over our destination was 3.1. We're targeting 5.4, so we still have 2 tons of extra, so we could burn this extra fuel. It's not going to be a huge problem for us in terms of not having enough fuel when we get there, but we just have to just focus on burning that fuel. So, anywho, we've leveled off for a minute. I'm just going to take a really short, refill my coffee, empty my bladder, and we'll come back and get this thing going here. She's definitely having a bit of a hard time keeping the speed up here at this altitude, so that actually will work to my advantage a little bit. It's going to take a little longer than planned to get there. We're burning extra fuel. As soon as I start to see that tick down towards 5.2, then even 5.3, then I can probably take the speed brake back off again. So in the meantime, I'm going to step away for about 2 minutes, guys. Stick with me, and we'll be right back as soon as I have refreshed my coffee. Okay, back on the flight deck, everybody. Just had to definitely use the facilities there, and I refilled my cup of coffee as well, so that's good. It is a cold and miserable day out there, though. that rain that was coming down in New York is coming down out here too, and it is just a miserable day. All right, so we are kind of stuck here now, so I'm going to just clear this flight control message because we know the speed brake is still out, and otherwise no change in status. Remove status. We just have the center tank pumps unusable. That's fine. Let's see here. 5.3. There we go. That's a little better. I can go ahead and retract the speed brakes at this point. Stop right in them, and I expect the APU will burn that remaining 0.1 to get me down below 5.2 by the time we reach our destination. So I think we've kind of mitigated that overweight landing there by descending a little bit early. Now it's going to start accelerating again now that I took the speed brakes away from it, and that's fine. But yeah, we're going to start setting up for this arrival now, so that's what that's what I was going to do. You know, nothing, no big deal. Okay, so let's go ahead and okay, so we're going to go ahead and check over our flight plan here. So let's go ahead and just do this here. So this is the day's arrival through Banff. We're on our way to Banff now. We do Corey, Capo, Edison, Olean, Marvy, Coco, Dades. And then from Dades we go to Jackball, 6,230 knots, and those are both bang on there as well, and a manual leg of 277 after that. 275 is what it's got, that's fine. And it's going to be a vector around for an ILS to runway 19 right. So we're going to check and make sure. So we got a little discon in there. Then we've got Fatty, Jim Bob. Fatty is going to be above 3,000. Jim Bob's at 2,000. And I should be checking the constraints on the page up front. If I can turn my head enough to be able to do this. I don't know if I could do this. This is too weird of an angle. Wow, that's a weird angle. I know my... Alright, so now if I look at it, and then I also have to press the button, which is this button. There we go. There you go. Jackball 6,230 knots, Fatty above 3,000, Jim Bob. Tampa 19 right, and the missed approach is 500 feet, then caught a right turn 3,000 feet, direct PIE VOR, and hold 3,000 feet. And I go one more. You'll see that there as well. So there's the missed approach as well, 500 feet, then over to PIE. Beautiful. So that's all in there. RadNav 1085, IJ, RT 187. That's good. Prog page 260. Optimal's at 340, but we're trying to burn extra fuel here now. And so what we'll do is put the runway here. KTPA 19 right. 193 miles to go. Beautiful. 196 degree bearing. That sounds about right. GPS primary now actually high. It's all good. Performance. We're back in cruise. For descent. I want to do about 320 as the max in descent because you're more likely to overspeed when you're going down the hill if there's winds are not quite as forecast, so it's much better. You always want to kind of leave yourself more of a margin. So by doing 320, when it gives us a plus 20, minus 20 buffer, that still limits us to 340, which still gives us a 10 knot buffer into the red line. So 320 is kind of a magic number for the descent. It's kind of the fastest you ever really want to kind of plan on doing in the descent. All right, let's see here. 2977. Oh no, that's Newark. It's 2978 though. 2978. Oops. Come on. 78. Temperature of 27 degrees. Well, it's better than raining at 27 degrees than raining at 7 degrees. 20 degrees warmer than it was in Tampa. That's what we were looking for. It's warm weather. It's going to be a little bit gusty though. It should be fun. 29 degrees. Winds 210 at 21. So 210 at 21. And the minimums on this, 221. I didn't see anything that amends that, so 221 it is. Missed approach was 3,000, so we go ahead to the next page, and in the event of a go around, we won't bother accelerating until we reach 3,000, because otherwise you end up trying to accelerate while you're still also just barely below your missed approach altitude. So better to just sort of wait till you level off there. Gives you a little more time to think too. Fuel prediction. So now we're showing 5.3 over. That's looking pretty good. If I ride the speed brakes a little bit more and deploy some stuff early, we should be able to get that below 5.2 by the time we arrive. That still gives us 2.2 extra over our min-destination fuel, so that's good. And secondary, I'm just going to recopy the active. There's no other runway available in Tampa, so there's not really any point putting much else into the secondary. So I'm just going to leave the secondary blank at this point, and that's basically it. So Cat +6, we're just, it's, we're almost coming out the top here. I could almost kill the anti-ice here. That's also probably helping with our fuel consumption, but anywho. Yeah, so there's Banff. That's the start of the star right there. We're coming up to it pretty quick. Hooray! Doing well here. All right, so take one sip of my coffee. Are you ready for the approach briefing?
Go ahead.
And the one thing I love, because I'm looking at the software as it pops this up and reminds me, hey, by the way, buddy, fill this stuff out. Oh yeah, thanks. All right, approach type, ILS, threats. Weather's a potential threat today for sure. No auto land, no final sector, FO EVIS LS required. Yes, that's new. What did we put? 220. Is it 221 or 231? I can't see that from here. Yeah, 221. It's a little bit hard. And I realized this, and I didn't realize it for a long time. I was kind of looking at this one of the videos, and I realized, like, you know, I'm looking at this at a 1080p resolution, I believe, 1920 by 1080, but then I'm streaming at 720p because just to keep the stream at a kind of manageable, so it's not HD really. It's more. So I realized that, like, even from here, like, I can kind of read this ILS 19 right pretty clearly on the stream. You guys are not going to be able to read that, so I apologize for that. I never kind of realized what a difference that made, but at the same time, like, there's a limit to what this computer can do. This computer can only do so much. I am asking a lot of it to stream at 720 while we're flying the sim. So hopefully, with my new graphics card that I'm going to get someday soon, I can change this equation a fair bit. Airport arrival, airport altitude 21 feet, and decision height. Yeah, sorry, MSL 221. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Status, MEL. The MEL, it does affect the arrival process in that no Cat 3 dual approaches, Cat 3 single only, and no RNPAR approaches, which we're not planning on RNPAR as well. So it hasn't impacted the arrival, but we do need to just be cognizant of it. And no TAMs. I didn't really see anything that affected the arrival process as well. So the arrival today, we're just starting it now. It is the DADES 1 RNAV arrival into Tampa, 20-2 Bravo, Tampa International. Radar required, jets and turboprops only. Do not file the Bow, Edison, Groover, or Nick transitions to be assigned by ATC only. Okay. So we're doing the Banff arrival here. So we've got the routing constraints. They're all in there as published with the restriction there at Jackball for the arrivals on 19 right. Because 19 left and 28 are both closed, we're planning an ILS in 19 right today in Tampa, Florida, 21-4. IJRT 1085 and 187 is all auto-tuned. The glide slope check height at Jim Bob is 2,000. The ILSDA is 221. Missed approaches as published was otherwise advised by ATC. Top altitude 3,000. The MSA 2,700 feet. Most sectors around the St. Petersburg VOR, which is just off to the southwest. That's the missed approach point there. 3-degree glide slope. Pappy's on the left. MALSR lighting system. RVR 2400 or 1/2 mile visibility required for this approach. It's supposed to be a couple miles visibility, though there are some rain showers we have to watch out for when we get there. Landing on runway 19 right. We're going to aim to touch down the optimum touchdown zone from the aiming marks, 2 marks thereafter. The TPL is the end of the painted touchdown zone, which should be 3,000 feet down the runway. I imagine it's before Whiskey 6. That's another thing that's also painted on this AMM chart, which again, I'll show you. You really can't see it that well, unfortunately. But they even show you all the markings on the runway. So if I go to Tampa again, they show you where the aiming marks are, where the end of the painted touchdown zone is. It shows you everything for 19 right. If I can do this way. So see, it's got all the marks on the diagram there, all the aiming marks all the way down the runway, so you can see exactly where in relation to the taxiways, and it is basically halfway between Whiskey 6 and Whiskey 7 is where the 3,000 foot mark ends. So that's going to be our touchdown point limit. It'll be a convenient left turn off the runway. Probably going to be Whiskey 3 or Whiskey 4 maybe. If Whiskey 4, that's very convenient because it takes us right onto Juliet, because we're going around to airside Alpha, going to gate Alpha 10 today. No transfer of control required on the approach. It's going to be a manual approach. It's going to be a managed approach to a manual landing, low glide slope coupled approach. So once we're cleared for the approach, we'll arm approach mode, second autopilot. Anti-ice will most likely be off given the temperature for this arrival. We can do auto brake low. Auto brake low is selected. We'll do reverse full initially, especially if it's a wet runway at all. We'll do reverse full initially, make sure we're decelerating, and then we'll back off to reverse idle and config full for landing. Autopilot will come off when the runway's in sight. Landing's assured, no traffic ahead on the runway. Beyond that, just trying to think. So fuel is a big concern just because we're actually overweight. We almost have too much fuel, and we've gotten a little bit of fuel back now. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the speed brakes back out again, just do about half. And you can kind of hear that little rumble in the background. It does get a little bit bumpy. It's not terrible. It's just like it's just a little bit of just general vibration you start to feel through the airplane. So doing our best to kind of cut down on the fuel a little bit here. APU's running, so that'll help burn another 100 kilos off. We're targeting 5.2 at touchdown to get under our ZFW supposed landing weight according to Simbrief, 66 tons, and that's what it's planned on. So I'm going to go with that one just because to get us to 64.5, we'd have to burn such a ridiculous amount of fuel. We'd have to hold for probably an hour to burn enough fuel to get down below our max landing weight. So we're not going to simulate it that far, but we'll do our best to try and burn ourselves down to 5.2 tons before arrival. No ATCs online. I think that's about everything. So comments, questions, threats. So threats for this arrival, obviously the landing weight is the biggest threat. Right now we're trying to burn to make sure we don't get under, to get us under that 66 ton landing weight. So it's a threat in the sense that like we're leaving the speed brakes out. We've just got to monitor the situation, make sure that once we turn final, that we do believe we're going to be 5.2 tons on the fuel or less as we turn final. So we're trying our best to kind of keep ourselves going here. That speed brake's still out, that's fine. What I might even do is start down a little early here. So I'm going to go ahead and start down to 20, and we'll just start a descent right now. And again, starting down early just burns a little bit more gas. The engines burn less fuel when they're down, or burn more fuel when they're down low. So Mach descent, all blue, flight level 200 set. I can see the top drop scrolling into view there anyways at about 70 miles away. So we will level off before that. It'll help just burn just a little bit more fuel. Hello from somewhere over the UAE on a flight from London to the Maldives. Hello, Captain Michael. Welcome. We are on our way. We're flying over Florida. We're on our way from Newark down to Tampa. We're just finishing the approach briefing. Just trying to think if there's any other threats for this arrival. Weather's a bit of a threat for this arrival, so I've done wet numbers. In case it does start raining, we have considered the landing distance with the runway being wet. We do have a good 2 tons to hold. So again, looking at this, we could hold for about an hour. So if some really inclement weather, and there's a chance of thunderstorms, the thunderstorms do roll over the field, we can hold for about 2 hours before we have to consider going off to our alternate. Our alternate today, I believe, is Orlando. No, it's Miami. Yes, it's Miami. So the weather in Miami is supposed to be really nice. I'm just going to do a weather check right now in Miami. It's gusty winds as well, 216, gusting 28. But otherwise, it's a nice day in Miami, 31 degrees. They don't have the storms in the forecast that far south. If I had the weather radar, I'd turn up the weather radar, but I don't, so I'm just going to use my backup weather radar on my tablet, perhaps you can say this is. Pull up my weather here. And there is definitely some weather kind of moving across Florida, but it's not in Tampa yet, so hopefully we're going to beat the weather in. The nice thing is that Miami is past the weather, so if we are holding here because of the weather, we can just sort of get ahead of the weather and go to Miami. We do have an hour of hold fuel, though, so we have lots of time to kind of hold and decide on that. Beyond that, I don't see a whole lot of other threats. The MEL does not really affect the arrival. The airfield I'm somewhat familiar with, Alpha 10. And yeah, so for the taxi in, just because we don't have any ATC online, Alpha 10 is over here on the east side of the Alpha airside building here, so we would take Juliet around and probably enter the apron on Juliet 1 to Golf and somewhere turn off into Alpha 10 here. I should probably have, so I should mitigate a few risks, I should have the parking gates chart ready to go as well, just so I can make sure I can figure out which one is Alpha 10 fairly easily. So there's Alpha 10. It is, it's about 3 up, not quite halfway up the east side of airside 1. So we'll try to do that. And then the other thing we need to do is we need to get our CTAF frequency ready for Tampa, since this is now the United States and we now have CTAFs. So 19.5 is the CTAF for Tampa. So I'm going to go ahead and throw 19.5 in the box here, so it's ready to go. And I think that's it. Any questions? Any questions?
No questions.
Descent checklist. Descent checklist. No. Not disengage autopilot. Oh my god. You're terrible. You're absolutely terrible at this. Alright, there's a TAT of plus 10 already. We might be able to take the anti-ice off once we level off here. I'm going to keep the speed brakes on until I see that 5.2 come in nicely, because we've only got about 30 minutes of landing here. 17, 14, yeah. Which reminds me, flight attendants, 20 minutes to landing. It's a bit annoying to go down early, especially when there's kind of convective cloud down low and bumps, but we've got to burn this fuel. And there's only a set number of ways we can burn the fuel. We've increased the drag by having the speed brake out. Going down lower. That's about the only thing we can do, and we're just going to start descent soon anyway, so it's not like we're starting down that early. Maybe about 30 miles earlier than we would have otherwise would at 40 miles. Trying to burn a little bit of extra gas because we're overweight for landing. We need to get below 5.2. We're showing 5.3, so we're pretty close now. We're pretty close. With the APU running, the speed brakes out a little bit. If I get the gear and flaps down early on this approach, that could also help increase that drag. So. But yeah, you're flying in the 789 from London to Maldives. Well, it's probably the 320. I guess the 320 could probably do it. It might be a bit of a strain, but I'm sure the 320 could probably do it. But yeah, I'm hoping that that 777 comes out in the next couple of months. Unfortunately, I won't be able to fly it on a pilot's life because I can't afford that ticket just yet. So in order to get that, it's a pity you can't take out a loan. That would be kind of a neat little thing if you could take out a loan for a type rating. And then just pay it off with your salary over time. That would be an interesting way. But I guess it is kind of a reward system. Like you have to earn a little bit of money to be able to pay for these things. I have a number of flight ratings. I chose the ones. It's not like anyone forced me to choose these particular ones that I have. I picked them because I thought they were common aircraft. I picked the 320 and the 37 and the CRJ, which were the common aircraft available in the sim that I was going to fly a lot. Yeah. The A380 would cost you $5 grand, so the 777 at $4 grand seems like a bit of a deal. But that's still $4 grand that I don't have. I've got $1,400. I've almost got $1,500 in the bank. I'm almost halfway there, but it would take probably the rest of this season to earn that much money because I generally earn about $200 a flight, if even that. Let's do last year. Let's do the finance report for the last year and see what it says. Total income for the period. So in the last year, I've made $2,800. So basically, it will take me about a year to save up enough money for that 777 type rating. So it might be a while before you guys see me fly the triple on stream here. There's 20,000. There's speed alt star. Just working hard to try and keep the speed alt. Keep the speed against my speed brake here, but that's okay. But yeah, in order to get to $4,000. Yeah, I need about a year's worth of salary still. Maybe not quite a year, but close to a year in order to afford the triple, which is a bit disappointing, but I guess I'll be very good at flying it by the time you guys ever see it on stream. Not that JetBlue flies a triple, and I don't plan on leaving JetBlue soon. I'm enjoying this JetBlue flying. I think it's a good airline to fly for. It's a very flexible route structure. The 320, it's got a great 320 route structure, so I'm really enjoying this here. All right, it's showing 5.2 estimated over Tampa, so I'm going to close the speed brakes again, let it be. We've got a TAT of plus 13, so we can take off the anti-ice. And yeah, it's a little bit dreary out there, but otherwise we're doing okay. We're going to start down to 6,000 in about 20 miles. There, this is not such a long stream. That last stream I did it felt like a long slog by the time all was said and done. It was a long slog. It was 4 hours, and the next stream is going to be back to New York, so it's going to be pretty similar length. If anything, if we try and catch that tailwind, it'll be even faster than today. And then we'll hope the tailwind shifts and pushes us back down to San Juan for the next one, because that, not the next one, but the one after is going to be the long one. New York down to San Juan again, and it's nothing but staring at water for 3.5 hours. So it's not even very interesting. There's not much scenery to look at. We'll have to find something interesting to do, and might try and fail some stuff there. And unfortunately, with this daytime streaming, I have a hard time finding enough viewers to make it worth my while here. But I would like to try and fail some stuff on one of these flights. But my normal goal used to be 10 viewers, and I might even dial that back a little bit if I can get a few more people watching. And we'll see if we can dial in some failures, because there are some neat failures in here. You can do all sorts of stuff. You can just fail the systems. You can even just force it into certain laws. You can force it into alternate law with or without protections, or direct law if you want to force it into the laws. All sorts of interesting stuff you can do here. Fires, so you can have unextinguishable fires in the engines, the APUs, cargo, extinguishable fires with 1 or 2 bottles. What else can you do? You can do all sorts of interesting stuff. You can have fuel pump failures galore, but you can also have high temperatures, transfer valves, or even fuel leaks from different places, and manage them accordingly. Follow the checklist. There's all sorts of interesting failures we could be doing here, and I should probably do more of them. I did one the other day, actually, that was really kind of entertaining. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and set 6,000 feet for a jackball there. And there's speed, descent, all blue. 6,000 feet set, roger, 6,000. So the other day I was looking through the QRH trying to find some interesting failures to practice, and the one I came across is a dual AOA heat failure. So you've got 3 AOA probes on the side of the airplane, the captain, the FO, and the standby. Go outside, see them here. So the let's see if I can zoom in enough that you can really kind of see them. That's as much as I can zoom in, but that's I believe that one's the captain, that one's the standby. No, I think it's the other way. Standby, captain, and FO's AOA. So these are the angle of attack vane sensors. And there's thrust idle for our descent. And so they're heated, of course, to prevent ice buildup. But of course, if the heat fails on one of them, each one feeds a different one of our ADIRs, the number 1, the number 2, and the number 3. If the heat fails on one of them, then they may start to get erroneous data. The way the ADIRs work, of course, is a simple voting system. If 2 of the 3 ADIRs agree on what's going on outside, and the third one is way out to lunch, then the computer believes the 2 that are in agreement. Then the system believes the 2 that are in agreement. There's 2978. 2978 inches. However, if you have 2 of those probes ice up at the same time...
I have control.
I have control.
You have control.
If you have 2 of them... I thought I muted him. If you have 2 of them ice up at the same time, you end up with a very interesting failure. And basically, all the QRH says, if 2 AOAs are failed, if 2 AOA heats are failed, then it says, turn off one of the ADRs, turn off one of the failed ADRs. So I had simulated captains and FOs. I think I simulated that the FOs was on MEL, and then I failed the captains halfway through the flight. And so what it says is turn off the ADRs for one of the failed systems. So why do you turn off the ADR? That's a weird QRH procedure. You would think at face value until you start to think about it. So why do you turn off one of the ADRs if you've lost your heat? And why do you not turn it off when you lose the heat on the first one? Well, again, it goes back to, well, like I said, the voting principle. There's 3 ADRs. If 2 of them are in agreement about what's happening, then all the systems in the airplane believe the 2 that agree with each other. However, if you have a double AOA heater failure, then there's a good chance that both probes are going to ice up in the same way, and both probes are going to give the same wrong readings to the airplane. And because 2 probes are in agreement, the airplane's going to believe those 2 probes. So by removing one of those from the equation, you now have two working systems. Each one gets a 50-50 vote. Neither one is going to the airplane's not going to believe one over the other because there's no third, majority tiebreaker. So that's the whole idea, is that you have removed, by turning off one of the ADRs, you've now taken away that supermajority that the failed ones would have otherwise gotten, and overrode the one that might very probably be correct. So it's an interesting failure just because it's one that you have to sit there and think about for a couple minutes. You're like, why would I do this? And then suddenly when you start to think about how the systems interrelate and have the voting system, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I'm just trying to exclude one. And then it's funny because the note actually says, prefer to leave the captains running because the captain runs on the essential bus, which runs off the essential buses. So out of the 3 of them, they're all powered by different buses. Thank you, MSFS, for another fantastic kick in the rear end turbulence. Yeah, we got 5.3 in the tanks now. Now we're going to come in with less than 5.2. That's fine. We'll leave the AP running to the ground now. We got lots of extra fuel. But yeah, so it says, if possible, leave the captains on. So if the captains and the FOs have failed, then we turn off the FOs and leave the captains on. The reason why is because if you have a further failure where you have some kind of a major electrical malfunction and possibly an electrical emergency, the captain's instruments will stay powered and the captain's ADR will stay powered. Whereas if you turn off the captain's one and leave the number 2 on, but then you have some sort of a major electrical fault, you might lose that ADR as well. So it's really interesting to see these things put together. JPave8, hi Captain, are you looking forward to the A350 and A380 in an MSFS? I am. I am to a degree. The A380 is not my favorite airplane. It's not a very attractive airplane. It's an interesting airplane to fly, but certainly as a fan of airplanes per se, it doesn't even come close to holding a candle to the 747. That being said, I think it's an interesting airplane to fly, and I think I'm going to enjoy flying it. The 350. Very much so as well. Very technologically advanced airplane, so a very different ball of wax. Like the 380 looks like a souped-up 320 on the inside. I think it's got double standby gauges, but it looks like a souped-up 320 on the inside. But the 350 is just a completely different generation. Approach checklist.
Barrow ref.
2978 inches. Set. 2978 inches set.
2978 set. Seat belts.
On.
Minimum.
221 feet set.
Auto brake.
Low. Low armed.
Engine mode selector.
Normal.
Approach checklist completed.
Alright, they wanted more drag. Just kind of having a hard time keeping up, but it's getting down there now. Alright. As we get a little closer to the airport, my sim's getting a little choppier. Alright, so I'd say we're definitely within range to probably switch to the VATSIM CTAF here. So there's the Tampa CTAF. Yeah, we're about 20 miles out from starting the approach here. And about 30 miles out from the field, yeah. Tampa traffic, good afternoon. JetBlue 573 is 30 miles northeast of the field, descending on the Dade's arrival, planning an ILS 19er right. I love the shape of the A380, flew in the A350 a couple times, beautiful plane. I see, and I don't like the shape of the A380, it just looks like a giant beached whale. The 47 looked elegant, but the 380 looked like, it looked like an airplane built more by engineers than artists. Not that I think that Boeing didn't have engineers, but there's just something attractive about the curves on the 47. The 380 is just like it looks like, well, how do you make it bigger? Well, you do exactly this. It looks like they put the minimum amount of effort into the design possible, certainly in terms of the way it looks. But I still, like I said, I look forward to flying that. Speed brake's still out. Okay, put it away. There are still an idle thrust here, but anyways. And the 350, just such a technologically advanced airplane. It's like a whole new airplane compared to the traditional buses. So it'll be interesting to see how that flies. There's 7,000 descending, 6,000 for Jack Ball, and then we're going to come back to 230 knots there. All right, so there's a little bit of convective stuff out there. It doesn't look terrible. Rob up front.
Hi, Captain. The cabin is now secure for landing.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe it's a European thing. I don't know. I've always thought the 747 is one of the most, certainly out of the airliner era, I think it's probably the most attractive airliner. And it's sad that it is slowly passing by the wayside now. Speed All-Star. I don't think anything else that's really flying today really quite holds a candle to it in terms of just the overall looks. And maybe, and I was thinking about this the other day. I was talking this over with somebody, and I was thinking about this, and I wonder if it also has to do with just the fact that it's what am I trying to say here? The fact that the crew has such a commanding view, the captain has such a commanding view, being at the top of the second deck, like the 380, the crew, the flight deck is just barely above the lower deck, but the 47, you know, the commander of the 47 is just sitting up high on his mountain, like, you know, just observing the world go by. And I really, maybe I was wondering if that's maybe why it looks so attractive. It just looks like, you know, it looks like they mean business. All right, we're going to go down to 3,000 here. All right, 3,000 feet is set. There's thrust idle open descent, all blue. And yeah, we're going to try and lose a little bit of altitude here first, and then we'll do a turn inbound. We might just intercept the extended localizer. So let's pull heading. We'll just go present heading, and then we're just going to go direct radial into Fatty. So let's go direct Fatty. We'll do the radial in of 008. Sounds good. And then that's nav blue. Back to heading. And actually, the one thing I didn't do was I didn't put the LS buttons up. There it is. All right, let's go ahead and go. Heading is 220 is good for this. Let's arm approach mode, approach second autopilot. Lokestar, there's Lokestar. 19 miles final. Let's see how this open descent is kind of planned out here. It's trying to figure out when we're going to level off. Just about Addy. I think we might be a little bit high, so let's go ahead and just get just a little bit of speed brake and help it down a little bit here. Because we are 7 miles from Fatty. We need to cross at above 3,000. I think just a little bit above the slope here, just a little bit, but I think we'll be okay. Just need a little help. Yeah, the good old days. I visited a flight deck back in the 80s of the 47 when I was flying overseas. And yeah, it's a shame you can't do it anymore, but okay, there's the glide slope. We are below the glide slope, so that's good. So let's bring the speed back so we can start configuring. Flaps 1. Flaps 1.
Speed checked. Flaps 1.
Alright. No
Checked.
change in status. Remove status. Remove status. Alright. Glide slope star. Speed. And we did get the fuel below 5.2, so the fuel's good. Glide slope. I honestly don't know. So the question is, could an A350 pilot move to the A380 fairly quickly? I don't know, but I think the answer is no. The 350 is a whole new airplane now. Between the 320, the 330, the 340, 380, those ones are all very similar flight decks, and you could move those ones pretty quickly. So that's glide slope. Missed approach altitude of 3,000 feet is set. And we're just not going to quite slow down, are we here? Or maybe we will. Flap 2.
Speed checked. Flaps 2.
Come on, drag. Flaps 2 just barely sort of puts more drag out there initially because it just does the slats first, then it does the flaps. But once the flaps get out, then it's a little bit better. But even that's... Gear down.
Gear down.
If in doubt, throw out the gear. That'll drag it.
Crew, be seated for landing.
That'll bring the drag back. There we go. It's getting a little worrisome there. No, I think the 350 is very different, so I don't think you could very easily go from the 350 back to the 320, 380 family. The 320, the 380, the 330, you can interchange those ones pretty easily. What the heck? We got the gear hanging out. We're still accelerating down the hill here. Not happy with this. Speed's managed. Now it seems to have sorted itself out. Flaps 3. Flaps 3. Flaps 3.
Speed checked. Flaps 3.
Tampa traffic. JetBlue 573 is on a 4-mile final runway, 19er right. Flaps full.
Speed checked. Flaps full.
Landing check. Approach.
ECAM memo.
Landing no blue.
Landing checklist completed.
Check.
Checked.
Stable. Cat 1. Land.
Checked.
She's gusty.
Off.
Come on. Don't follow me now.
Checked.
Frame rate.
Minimums.
100.
Continue.
Checked.
50. 40. 30. 20. Retard. 5.
Spoilers. Reverse green. Decel. knots.
Checked. Manual brakes. Talk much of that because I'm focusing, but I also don't want to trigger my... I want to leave the volume and the mic open for my FS2 crew, and I don't want to trigger false calls. After landing checklist.
Radar and predictive wind shear system.
Off and auto. Off and off. Off.
After landing checklist completed.
Tampa traffic. JetBlue 573 is clear of runway 19 right, taxiing Juliet to airside Alpha. Alright, well that was actually a pretty good landing. It was getting me a little nervous on final there because it was getting a little bit gusty, and also my frame rate started dying a little bit on final. There's nothing worse than trying to land an airplane while your frame rate is just dying. I don't know what it is today. Every once in a while I get a day where my frame rate just does not want to keep up with my sim here.
The captain has turned off the seatbelt signs
And today was one of them. It wasn't the stream, it was the sim was just dying. And some days I can fly these and it's just fine, and some days I fly it and it just, nothing I seems to do seems to make it run at a reasonable rate. And I am looking forward to getting a faster GPU, and I'm hoping that that will definitely improve the performance. Of course, then when the performance improves, all I'm going to do is dial up the settings. I'm going to go for flying this in 1440 and hopefully streaming maybe in 1080 with a faster video card. We'll see what happens. I've also thought about it, and I've thought about it from time to time, is getting an external recording device and actually streaming via a different computer, so that it keeps the what am I trying to say? Keeps the load off the CPU. You know, the encoding and the streaming doesn't happen on the CPU, but it happens on another computer. So I have my laptop next to me most of the time while I'm streaming, just to kind of keep an eye on stuff. But yeah, I'm hoping that maybe with a little bit, maybe with the right device, I could just start streaming onto that computer and leave this computer purely just to run the sim and keep the performance up on the sim. So kind of have some dreams anyway, some hopes and some dreams when money maybe allows. But look at that windsock. Like, that was a good stiff wind on final. I have to say, like, that landing actually, I was focused on it a lot, but it did turn out pretty nicely in the end. The first stream I've watched live. I've enjoyed watching several of my videos on Twitch. I've learned a lot. Thank you. Well, and I appreciate that. I'm glad I've taught you the things. That's kind of my goal of getting out there, is having a little bit of fun, but at the same time sharing what I do know and trying to help people try and operate their airplanes as realistically as possible. It's kind of my goal, you know, in the long run. So the APU is up and running. Yeah, we're good. So I'm glad those videos helped, whatever videos helped, and I always take suggestions for new topics. I don't have a lot of time these days. I kind of have a lot of stuff going on in my personal life right now, and I don't have a lot of time for new videos, but so the GTX 1060 should be fine for recording, streaming. Don't buy a 3000 series, too power hungry. The 4000 series is much more efficient. And this 1060, it's okay most of the time. It's fine most of the time, but then you get a day like this where you do, and this Tampa scenery, it is pretty intense. I'm not the only one who's made this complaint. There are some people who complained, and I was leaving New York too, so that was pretty intense. So maybe it's just a combination of the airports I was flying at today that also were cutting back on my frame rate. Hopefully, but of course, when I do my next stream, we're going from here right back to JFK, so back to New York City for another dying frame rate there. I think that says 9, so I think this next gate is gate 10, and I do see a marshaller there. So let's get the lights off. And there's the line. I don't see the marshaller, but I see the equipment anyways. Just look down quickly, make sure the weather radar is off so we don't fry the guys. Accumulator is good. Engine anti-ice is off. The APU bleed is now on. I don't actually see Buddy anywhere. Oh, do I see him behind the tug there, I think? Or behind the belt loader there? Or is he inside the building? He might be inside the building. Oh, that's a pity. There's something there, I think. I can't tell, or is it just the belt loader? Oh, he's there. He's there. He's hiding behind the belt loader. Trying to tell me what to do from behind the belt loader. I think that belt loader is part of the static scenery. I don't think that's part of the GSX scenery. I doubt GSX would park a belt loader right there. So, all right. Anywho, we kind of saw him in the end, so we got a good marshal. That's good. That's good. That's available. One engine. Wait for the power transfer. Clunk, then do the other engine. That way you don't get double transfers happening at the same time, because that's how you get glitches in systems and computers and stuff like that, is you do both transfers at the same time. All right. Want to see these both click under 10%. You can go ahead and take the seatbelt sign off, and beacon could go off. And then that should bring over everybody, hopefully. Here comes the bridge automatically. I love it. And let's go ahead and just take off the rest of this stuff here. He's got all that. The weather radar's off. Parking checklist.
Parking brake or chocks.
Set. Set and checked.
Engines.
Off.
Wing lights.
Off.
Fuel pumps.
Off.
Parking checklist completed.
I think FS2 crew assumes that we don't turn the fuel pumps off in flight, which is not really strictly correct. Airbus recommends if you're not using those pumps, you don't leave them on, even in automatic mode. Just turn the whole thing off. That way you're not liable to overheat those pumps. But anywho, that's neither here nor there because we are here and not there. Aha, funny stuff. Remember to spin my flight. Thank you. I will. Here's my flight. I think it was all good. That was generally a pretty good flight. I don't know what the touchdown rate was, but we're going to find out in a second here. But I thought that was pretty good. I thought that landing was pretty nice. Pretty reasonable touchdown rate. And it seems like I have like a message on my dashboard perhaps. I don't know what this red icon here is, so let's give it a second for it to kind of load. Let's see what's on my dashboard here. So what happened here that made it go inbox? I have a new friend request. Haha! Vladimir Starcevic. So let's go ahead and hit accept on that. But JPave8 had a GTX 1080 for the first 2 years of MSFS. It worked great, however, the upgrade to the RTX 4070 Ti has been mind-blowing. See, and I'm so looking forward to that. I am really honestly looking forward to it. I will be going for the 4000 series. I'm just going to save my pennies. I'm going to go straight into the 4000 series. I'm going to skip the 3000 series. I'm not going like super high-end, but I'm thinking like the prices have come down pretty reasonably. So I'm thinking like somewhere in the 40, 60, 40, 70, probably not a 4080, but 40, 60, 40, 70 range is where I'm probably going to be. I'm going to allocate probably about $900 to $1,000, between $800 and $1,000. So as long as I can find a good card for that, and there seem to be quite a lot of deals these days. Although I think the deals are kind of going away as Nvidia's value has gone up, and they're starting to divert more of their resources towards AI and everything else. But he said with scorn. But I think I will be able to find a pretty good deal at some point. So I'm about halfway there in terms of saving up the money. I'm just using money that I get from streaming. So thank you guys for watching the stream, and thank you for supporting this habit of mine. I'm going to slowly work my way up there. I'm about halfway there, and I may bite the bullet before the end of the year and set aside a little bit of extra money just to do that, just to pull the trigger on it and get it done. I actually did get a new monitor like 3 weeks ago. It's a really nice 31.5-inch curved monitor. It's the colors are so vibrant. I didn't even realize how vibrant colors could be on a monitor because my old one wasn't bad, but it was getting a bit old. And then this one is it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's big. So like, especially playing games, like it's a fair amount of my perspective. It's not quite the full perspective like you'd get, peripheral vision or anything like that, but it is a good amount of vision. What am I trying to say here? Yeah, but I did go for a 1440 monitor so that when I do upgrade my video card, my monitor is already ready to run at 1440, even though I'm only running the sim at 1080 and I'm only streaming to you guys at 720. Again, just to kind of keep things reasonable, because when you go from 1080 to 1440, you're doubling the number of pixels. So I tried it. I tried briefly running this sim with the new monitor at 1440, and I was right. It was basically half the frame rate it was before. It went to like 7 or 8 frames per second at some of the airports. I was like, no, it's just that, like, even up in the sky, I went flying once. I think I got to like 10 or 12 frames per second up in the sky. Like it was easily a 50% plus frame rate drop trying to draw that many pixels on the screen. So hopefully the RTX 4070, something in that range, something in that family will really will change the game for me, and will make hopefully streaming a little bit more effective. I can hopefully stream you guys maybe even in a 1080 HD, so you can see things a little bit better, because I realize it is quite blurry when you're looking around this flight deck. To me, it's clear enough that I can kind of see what's going on, but when you downscaled it to 720, I realize, and I've been watching some of the videos, and I realize that some of the stuff is hard to see, so I apologize for that, but it's the best I can do. But JPave8, thank you so much for subscribing. I appreciate that. As I said, all that money goes back into the sim hobby one way or another. Some of it goes to support hardware upgrades from time to time. Some of it will go to NVIDIA eventually to buy me a new card. And a lot of it goes back to the various developers in this business. So I'm saving my money for the Fenix A320. I'm saving my money for the PMD 777. And I don't make enough money streaming definitely to cover all those costs by myself. They just kind of, you guys help offset it a little bit, make it a little bit better. So that money that you do spend subscribing to me and so forth, it does go right back basically to the pockets of the developers one way or another, whether it be the airport developers, the aircraft developers. I don't pocket any of that money in the sense that, like, I don't take it and go and spend it on food or anything like that. this is all just subsidizing this hobby, and it all goes back to the hobby one way or another, whether it be developers, whether it be, and also sometimes it goes through donations too. So I've donated to VATSIM every year now, especially now that they're a fully charitable organization. It doesn't matter that it's a fully charitable organization. I love their service. I love what they do. I am happy to support the infrastructure of VATSIM. Ditto, I also support through donations to Canadian Express, which is my favorite airline, virtual airline. I like to fly that airline. It's just they're very friendly. They're very low key. There's no big rules about it. It's nice. Thank you, and thank you. I do my best to kind of create content that I think I would want to see, and I hope it helps people out. And I haven't made a lot of videos lately. I started working on my next Embraer Systems video a little while ago, just this past weekend. It's just been so busy. I try to get these pilot live streams out there because they're fun. I really enjoy them, and I hope that comes across. Sometimes they get to be a bit of a chore when I do too many of them in too short a period of time, or they end up really long. But I still do enjoy them. I still do enjoy trying to fly these airplanes as best I can from place to place. Hopefully it's not too loud outside. Wow, frame rate purgatory here. Come on, zoom out a little bit here. And I think they're done offloading. Oh, that's even better. I love it when you go to the drone camera and the drone is kiltered over sideways for some reason. Oh, well, okay, I'm going to turn down that APU sound a little bit there. But anyways, I think that's enough for me for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. I hope you had fun. We are up for, definitely not next week. Next week is insanely busy for me. I only have one day off the whole week. But our next flight is going to be from here to Tampa back up to JFK. So maybe the week after, I'm hoping. I don't know. We're going to have to see how time works out, how things work out. But I'm thinking probably the week after. We'll try and get this done. If not, it should be before the end of the month anyways. I'm sorry it's going to be a little bit of time, but this month is just insane. It's just insane how much stuff I've got to do this month. So anyways, but that's what we got on tap next. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for flying with me today, for talking, for chatting, and thank you for the subscription. I do appreciate it. Like I said, it just goes back into supporting this hobby. So thank you for enabling me. But no, honestly, thank you so much, and thank you for joining me on this stream. And join me probably this weekend. I will do some VATSIM streaming. Probably actually going to be tomorrow afternoon. I might not do streaming, but I'll definitely be on VATSIM probably tomorrow afternoon somewhere. Maybe out in Moncton Centre, maybe Toronto Centre. We'll see what happens. But look out for me tomorrow afternoon. I will be online somewhere, and we'll see you guys all then. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day. We'll see you soon.